Well, it's almost that time of year. It's almost time for training camp. And I know what I got to do every year before training camp. I got to refamiliarize myself with the rosters of these teams. Every year there's new coaches because a lot of us get fired or traded or trampled on, whatever. There's a lot of new players that come in through the draft, through free agency, and there's a lot of departures. The schedules are different. There's a lot of change. Some of these teams are playing games in Australia, for crying out loud. So we're going to try to preview some divisions like we did last year. We've been working hard on the AFC West. That's a division I came from. So I'd like to start with the 4 teams in the AFC West, and we will give you a top of mind on that division, and then we'll specifically dig in to the 4 teams. Okay, the AFC West was led by the Denver Broncos last year. They went 14-3. They became the #1 seed in the AFC. What a season they had. It was their first division title since 2015. That was Peyton Manning's last season. That's the last time the Broncos won the Super Bowl. But what a season it was in Denver. The Chargers, Malasak's team, they went 11-6. They made the playoffs again. They had a lot of injuries. But once again, they were a quick exit in the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs surprisingly went 6-11, finishing 3rd place. Not a common place for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And the Raiders, they finished 3-14. Not good. You got to win your division games. That's very important. Last year, Denver and the Chargers both went 5-1 in the division. The Raiders and the Chiefs went 1-5. The easiest way to make the playoffs is winning your division. You're automatically in, and you automatically get a home field playoff game. So winning this division is critical. You know, I'm looking at my Raiders. They haven't won the AFC West since 2002. That's a 23-year drought. Come on, Raiders. The Denver Broncos last year, they ended the Kansas City Chiefs' 9-year reign. Andy Reid, the Chiefs, they had won 9 straight AFC Western titles until last year. And between Denver and Kansas City, do you know that the Chiefs and Broncos have won the West for the last 16 years? Come on, Chargers. Come on, Raiders. Let's go. Kansas City, I want you to think about this. During that 9-year reign, 9 straight AFC Western championships, they only lost 8 division games. And right now, if you look at Pat Mahomes, he is 36-8 all time against the AFC West. I mean, Andy Reid and Mahomes are 19-3 on the road against the AFC West. And when you think about the Chiefs losing 8 division games during that 9-year run, that's amazing. And it's really amazing that last year they went 1-5 in the West. So I think Kansas City is going to be on edge as they head into this training camp. Let's take a look at the head coaches. Kansas City is led by the great Andy Reid. He's been to 6 Super Bowls. He's won 3. Reid and Mahomes, that continuity since 2017 has been a driving force for the Chiefs. Sean Payton, the coach in Denver, has really done an outstanding job progressively getting the Broncos better. He's won a Super Bowl. He is the 5th head coach in Denver. They've had 14 different quarterbacks since 2017. But now they're getting some continuity as Bo Nix and Peyton enter their 3rd season together. And since 2017, Jim Harbaugh is the 4th head coach of the Chargers. Harbaugh's been to a Super Bowl, just one, but they lost it to his brother, John. Remember that? And the Raiders, they have a new head coach, Clint Kubiak. He was the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks last year and a big part of their world championship run. But if you look at the Raiders since 2017, when Reid and Mahomes started this run, the Raiders have had 7 head coaches, 10 different starting quarterbacks. Hell's bells. I used to listen to that song. A lot of turnover on the offensive side of the ball in the AFC West. I mean, there's going to be 4 new coordinators on offense. There's only 4 teams. That means 100% of these teams have a new offensive coordinator. Eric Bieniemy returns to Kansas City. He's been in college. He's been in Washington. He was coaching running backs in Chicago. He returns to be the coordinator of the Chiefs. Matt Nagy has left. He's with the New York Giants. And now Denver has a new offensive coordinator. Surprisingly, you win 15 games. Sean Payton fired his offensive coordinator, promoted Davis Webb. And we'll get into the Broncos later, but Webb is going to call the plays for Sean Payton. Talk about pressure. And the Chargers, they fired Greg Roman, and they brought in the ex-Miami Dolphin head coach Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator. Talk about a radical change in structure. That'll be interesting. Well, the Raiders, we all know, have a new head coach, Clint Kubiak. He'll probably call the plays, but Andrew Janocko will be the new offensive coordinator for the Silver and Black. He replaces Chip Kelly. So 4 new offensive coordinators in the AFC West. That could mean a lot of new play calling, if you know what I mean. Injuries at quarterback is a big story in the AFC West. Pat Mahomes, great quarterback of the Chiefs, tore that ACL in Week 15 against the Chargers last year. I've seen him running around during these OTAs. I have heard he will be ready to roll when the regular season starts, but who cares what I heard? We got to see what happens. Bo Nix hurt that ankle against the Bills in the playoffs. He missed the AFC Championship game. Will he be 100% ready to go in the opener? Guess who the Broncos and the Chiefs play in the opener? They play each other. So I hope these two quarterbacks are ready to rumble. And Justin Herbert, nobody got hit more than Justin Herbert. He broke his non-throwing hand last season. He was battered. Let's hope he's had a nice, healthy offseason. Last couple points in the AFC West. This conference has some of the most overlooked defenses in football. There's 3 of the top 10 scoring defenses in the West. The Denver Broncos, 3rd in the league, 18 points a game allowed. The Kansas City Chiefs every year with Steve Spagnuolo do a great job. They were 6th. The LA Chargers were 9th. And if you look carefully at total defense, yards allowed, all 4 of these teams are in the upper half of the NFL. I mean, Denver was 2nd in yards allowed. The Chargers were 5th. Chiefs were 10th. And the Raiders were 14th. And there are some new defensive coordinators in the West as well. Vance Joseph returns in Denver. Kansas City returns Steve Spagnuolo. But the LA Chargers, they lost Coach Minter to the Ravens. So Coach Harbaugh went out and got Chris O'Leary, a former Charger assistant. O'Leary called the plays for the Western Michigan. What are they, Jake?
Broncos.
The Broncos. It'll be a little different calling plays against the Denver Broncos, let me tell you. And the Raiders, they promoted their very good defensive line coach, Coach Leonard, to defensive coordinator. So 2 new defensive coordinators in the West. And lastly, take a look at the schedule. Every year the schedule changes. But when you look at the AFC West this year, not only do they have to play each other twice, they also got to go play the AFC East. So you're going to see all these teams play the Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, who are in the Super Bowl, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets. So all of these teams in the West will play all the teams in the East. Knock on a grease board if you're with me. These 4 teams also got to play all 4 teams in the NFC West. That means they got to play the defending champions, the Seattle Seahawks. They got to play the team everybody's talking about, the LA Rams. And they got to play the San Francisco 49ers, who won 12 games. And they got to play the Arizona Cardinals. So that's a tough schedule, man. Take a look at it. That means everybody in the West has to play Seattle and New England, who won 14 games. They also got to play Buffalo, the Rams, and the 49ers, who won 12 games last year. Not to mention, they got to play the teams in the division. There's a lot to unpack. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at the defending division champions, the Denver Broncos, who won 14-3 last year. They beat Buffalo in the playoffs 33-30 in overtime, but they lost their great young quarterback, Bo Nix. And then they were eliminated in the playoffs at home against New England. So DraftKings this year, you know, I love DraftKings. They only think Denver's going to win 9.5 games. And they're a 20-1 odd to win the Super Bowl. But odds and lines are always subject to change, so keep an eye on that. What a job general manager George Patton has done. Remember that name. He just got a 5-year extension. He's drafted some Pro Bowlers. Yes, he went out and got Pat Surtain, great corner, MVP of defense 2 years ago in the first round. But he has hit on some second-round picks, man. Quinn Miners, Pro Bowl right guard. He's hit on Nick Benito, great pass rusher. Marvin Mims, spectacular return man. And Bo Nix is playing quite well. So general manager George Patton, think about this. They had $85 million in dead money after the Russell Wilson experiment. They've managed to overcome that, continue to add players, re-sign players, win 14 games, and be very close to getting to the Super Bowl. That's a hell of a job. No wonder he got extended. There's a lot of coming and going in the NFL, so we're going to start with the Denver Broncos draft class. Remember, they traded a first-round pick. They traded a couple other picks to the Miami Dolphins to get a young receiver, Jalen Waddle. We'll get into him in a second. But they only had some mid-round picks, and starting in round 3, they drafted Tyler Onyedem, a defensive tackle who played 1 year at Texas A&M, played 4 years at Iowa State. They need him. They lost John Franklin Myers in free agency. They drafted Jonah Coleman. Keep an eye on this kid. We'll talk about him in a minute. Running back from Washington. He's a very good player in the passing game, and he breaks tackles. They need a back. They drafted Cage Casey in the 4th round. I think he's going to compete at left guard. He has played tackle. He comes out of Boise State. They drafted 2 tight ends. The Denver Broncos, we all know, need more production from their tight end group. Just 3 receiving touchdowns and 750 yards. Not very much production from the tight ends of the Broncos. They took Justin Jolly from North Carolina State in the 5th round. Very good pass receiver. And then they took another tight end from Utah, Dallin Bentley, in the 7th round. So we got to keep an eye on these guys as we start looking at this offense. They also took a young safety, Miles Scott, from Illinois, and they took a linebacker from the University of Buffalo. I like this guy's name, Red Murdoch. Sounds like he is on that show Yellowstone I like to watch. But Red Murdoch will compete for the loss of Dre Greenlaw, who went back to the 49ers in free agency. So that's their draft class. Remember, Waddle, the great receiver from the Dolphins, is a big part of this draft class because he used a lot of draft capital to get him. Who else is coming to the Denver Broncos? They got a new offensive coordinator, Davis Webb. He was the quarterback coach. He's going to take over for Joe Lombardi. They also brought back John Morton, who was the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions last year. He is a longtime Sean Payton assistant. Excellent offensive coach. So the emerging young Davis Webb is going to call the plays. You talk about pressure, man. Sean Payton's giving up the play calling. You don't think he's going to be standing over Davis Webb listening to every play call, do you? But that's new. They've also added their young receiver, Jalen Waddle, from the Miami Dolphins. I know he hasn't had 1,000 yards either of the last 2 seasons, but he does give Sean Payton a deep ball receiver, another guy that can really make plays after the catch, and this cat can run some routes. And he strikes fear in the defense. That's something this Bronco offense desperately needed. When somebody's coming, somebody's got to be going. Who's leaving this? Well, Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, is out. Jim Leonard, very good defensive coach, coached the secondary. We all know how good Denver's secondary has been. Jim Leonard left, went to the Buffalo Bills as the defensive coordinator. Those are 2 good coaches you got to prove you can replace. They also lost John Franklin Myers, a defensive tackle who had 7.5 sacks. They lost Dre Greenlaw, which we talked about. He went back to San Francisco. And they lost P.J. Locke, a veteran safety who filled in very well for Brandon Jones last year when he was hurt. But for the most part, Denver has had a lot of continuity compared to some of these other teams. Let's talk about Sean Payton and what a great coach he is for just a minute. You got to give credit where credit is what? Due. That's right. And Sean Payton came to Denver after a year off. Remember, he was traded essentially to the Broncos. He inherits a team where Nathaniel Hackett was fired. I think it was week 17. The Broncos were 5-12. They had the Russell Wilson contract situation. It wasn't a good place. They had been in last place 3 years in a row, the Denver Broncos, before Sean Payton arrived. And right away in 2023, they go 8-9. 2024, they go 10-7. They lose in a wild card game at Buffalo. And then last year, 14-3, number 1 seed. They beat Buffalo in overtime, and they lost their quarterback. We know they lose to the Patriots. So they have progressively gotten better and better. And we just talked about the continuity they have on this roster. I look for Denver to be very, very good again. You ever hear that song by Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer? The Broncos live on the edge, man. The Denver Broncos last year, do you know that they won 13 games in comeback fashion? They came from behind 13 times to win. That's more than any team in NFL history. The previous record was 12. They were behind in the fourth quarter 6 times and came back and won. So it's a real credit to Sean Payton, his coaching staff, and their mental toughness. I sat in their meetings up there. I watched them practice. They are comfortable when they're uncomfortable. And I think a lot of that has to do with their intense preparation, their veteran coaching staff, and their veteran leadership on this football team. Continuity is a word that a lot of us broadcasters use and just kind of move on. Well, let me tell you about continuity in Denver. They re-signed 17 out of the 21 free agents, and that includes unrestricted free agents, restricted free agents, exclusive rights free agents. So Sean Payton, his general manager, George Patton, made a huge effort. Let's bring back our own. We don't need to bring in anybody else. Let's sign our men that have helped us build this team, that have exhibited mental toughness. This is really a cool roster if you're into continuity. You know, trading all those draft picks to Miami to get Jalen Waddle, yeah, it's risky. But I think when you have Courtland Sutton on one side and now you have Jalen Waddle on the other, I think they become formidable. The ball distribution in Denver has always been very good. But when I watched Denver play last year, 25% of their drives were 3 and outs. So they need a player that can rip the top off the coverage. They need a guy who can generate after the catch. They need somebody who can force rotations to help this running game. And I think Waddle is that guy. The Denver Broncos, not everything's perfect everywhere. They have to address the slow starts. I mean, in 2023, this team started off 0-3. In 2024, they started off 0-2. And last year, even though they went 14-3, they started off 1-2. I don't know if that's going to be good enough this year because in the first 6 games, ask me who they played, Jake. Who? Well, they open up on the road at Kansas City, and then they got to play Jacksonville at home, who came in and beat their butt last year. Then they got to play the Rams, who have already won the Super Bowl. They're getting fitted for their rings right now. Then they got to go on the road to San Francisco to play the 49ers. Then they got to go play at the Chargers, and then they got to play the world champion Seahawks. So a slow start could be very, very difficult to overcome this year. So let's start faster, Broncos. And speaking of starting fast, let's talk about Bo Nix starting faster. You know, in his first 2 seasons in the NFL in 2024, they started off 0-2. Well, Bo Nix threw 4 picks with no touchdowns. He specifically started slow. And in 2025, during that 1-2 start, Nix threw 3 interceptions in his first 2 games. So Sean Payton, Davis Webb, the new offensive coordinator, Bo Nix coming off that ankle injury at Kansas City. They got to start faster with their young quarterback. You like that, don't you? I mean, these first 6 opponents that they play are 68-34. And they got to open up in Arrowhead on Monday Night Football. So that should get all of their attention. Last couple things that are really cool about Denver. When you think about the Broncos, they have an amazing sack differential. I think it's a statistic that everybody should have to emphasize. What is a sack differential? Ask me, Clay.
What is it?
Well, how many sacks did you get from your defense? How many sacks did your offense allow? Denver was plus 45. I've been in football a long time. I've never heard of plus 45, man. They had 68 sacks from this defense, and their offense only gave up 23. So they can protect their quarterback, and they can get after your quarterback's ass, man, in big-time fashion. But there are some negatives. The Broncos led the NFL in penalty yardage, 68 yards a game. Man, that would piss me off. They can't afford to give up 68 yards a game with this schedule that they got to play this year. The other statistic that's a little bit alarming to me is the Broncos were -3 in the turnover ratio. That's uncommon for a team that is the number 1 seed. Yeah, they only turned the ball over 17 times, but this defense, as good as they were, they only took the ball away 14 times. So if Denver wants to get to the Super Bowl and win it, they got to reduce the penalties, they got to do a much better job in the turnover margin, and they got to start faster, man. That's what I think. Special teams, the Broncos dominate in special teams. And if you're really into football, you should really study Darren Rizzi, the special teams coach, because they got a hell of a kicker in Will Lutz. He's 28 for 32 on field goals, 39 for 39 on PATs. And they got an emerging star at punter, Jeremy Crenshaw. You know, there's good punters and great punters, just like there's good burgers and great burgers. Good hotels, great hotels. What Crenshaw is doing now to make himself great is he's not getting all these touchbacks, all this bullshit yardage. He is putting the ball down inside the 20, inside the 10, and Crenshaw is becoming a great weapon for this Bronco defense, setting them up with a long field. The other thing they have going for them is they got a great return man, Marvin Mims, 15.6 yards per punt return. Kick the ball between the numbers and the sideline or you're a dolt. What's a dolt, Clay?
Stupid fellow.
A stupid fellow. And lastly, they got this guy, Devin Key. When the Broncos are kicking off or covering punts, keep an eye on Devin Key. 26 special teams tackles. That's a franchise record. So they can get after your ass with special teams. They added Waddle to their offense. They got a lot of continuity on defense. They got a hell of a head coach. Let's get into the offense. Okay, let's get into the Denver Bronco offense. You know, you study all the film in the off season. You take a little break. You know, you learn how to use a lacrosse stick and all that stuff. Somebody has to really unpack the Denver Bronco offense. That's just what we did here at the FFCA. I mean, here's a team that was 14th in the league in scoring, 10th in total offense, 16th. That's middle of the pack running it, and they were 11th throwing it. We've already said they were -3 in the turnover ratio. They did a good job for the most part, just 17 giveaways on offense. This is a very interesting offseason for Denver. Sean Payton shook up his staff, fired his offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi. Pete Carmichael, a longtime Sean Payton assistant, left the Broncos. He's the new offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. They gave Davis Webb a promotion. Davis Webb, he got some head coaching interviews. Sean Payton said, hey, you're going to be the coordinator. And he brought back Johnny Morton, which we've already talked about. But Davis Webb is not only going to become a first-time offensive coordinator, he's going to call the plays for Sean Payton. Sean Payton is my friend. I've been with him 100 years. I can't believe he gave up the play calling. And you talk about pressure. Say it with me, guys.
Pressure.
Pressure? I mean, here's a first-time guy calling plays. He's got a quarterback, Bo Nix, who's coming off an injury. They got the toughest schedule in the league in the first 6 games, and they got to work in Jalen Waddle, a new receiver. Say it with me.
Pressure.
That's a lot of pressure on a young offensive coordinator, but I'm sure he'll handle it. You know, when you look at Sean Payton's offense in New Orleans, it was like a Ferrari, man. The ball distribution was awesome. Drew Brees every year, 1,000-yard receivers. Tight end was a big factor. A lot of different running backs went crazy. But in Denver, it's a grinded out offense, man. They got to really rely on long scoring drives. Painful sometimes to watch all these third down conversions. It's tough, but they've had some slow starts, too many 3-and-outs. There's a new play caller. There's a new go-to receiver. I can't wait to see what's new. One thing for sure, the Bronco offense needs more chunk plays, 20-plus yard passing plays. They were 17th in the league. Plus 10 running plays. I mean, hand the ball off to a back, get a running play that gets over 10 yards. They were 31st in the league. Not a lot happened in this Denver Bronco big play attack. Sean Payton's going to run a ton of screen passes. If you're a young coach, you want to study the perimeter screen game, Sean Payton is arguably the best in football. They ran 86 different screens. Quick screens to wide receivers, slow screens to backs, scan screens, play action screens. They do an excellent job really making it hard for you to rush the passer with all these screens. This is a high percentage pass offense. A lot of these passes are within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Matter of fact, 433 passes last year were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So if you're playing Denver, you're probably not going to get to the quarterback. So get your hands what? Get your hands up. Maybe you can bat a ball down. But a very quick pass offense with a lot of screens. They also threw 120 passes to their running backs. That's in the top 3 or 4 of the NFL. Screens, wide flares, choice routes. When you think of Sean Payton, do you think of Darren Sproles, Reggie Bush, Pierre Thomas in New Orleans? Sure you do. Well, they're using these backs big time, and their route trees for their running backs are big time. They ask a lot of them in the passing game. Sean Payton does not use a lot of motion. At least he didn't last year. 40.4% of the time, Denver went in motion. That's 31st in the league. Only the New York Giants motioned less. A lot of times they might motion a guy across and set him down, but they love to win in the pre-snap. That recognition phase is important to Sean Payton and Bo Nix. They also revved up the no-huddle offense last year. If you think about Bo Nix at Auburn, then you think about Bo Nix at Oregon. How good was Bo Nix in the no-huddle offense at Oregon? Very good. So Sean Payton over 12% of the time is in an up-tempo, no-huddle offense. I'm not even talking about the 2-minute situation. So if you're playing Denver, screens, quick passes, usage with the backs, and no-huddle offense, you better work on it. Denver led the NFL with 612 pass attempts, 36 pass attempts per game. That's not really uncommon for Payton. If you go back to New Orleans, Drew Brees and Sean Payton led the NFL in passes attempted per game 4 times. We know Denver needs more explosive plays, and that means they got to push the ball down the field better. Nobody really works harder into the night than Sean Payton and his staff coming up with deep ball designs. They love to get receivers up on your safeties, especially if you got a safety with bad ball skills. But their deep passing game wasn't very good. Balls thrown over 10 yards, they only had an 80.2 QB rating, and Bo Nix had 10 of his interceptions on passes thrown over 10 yards down the field. Tua threw 12, Geno Smith threw 11, and Bo Nix threw 10. So not only do they have to get more explosive plays, they got to take better care of the ball because that's where some of these turnovers showed up. This offense needs to get healthy as they enter the 2026 season. Let's keep an eye on Bo Nix carefully in the preseason. Probably won't play at all. J.K. Dobbins, hell of a back. He got hurt after week 7. They got to get him back. Left guard Ben Powers. He had a lot of injuries last season. And remember, they lost their center Luke Wattenberg for the latter part of the season, including the playoffs. 4 key members of this offense. Let's keep an eye on these guys and what they're doing throughout training camp and if they'll be ready to start the season. Every quarterback has to play better under pressure. Unblocked blitzers, somebody misses a block up front. And Bo Nix, he's very fortunate. He plays behind an offensive line that protects him pretty good. He was only under pressure 27.7% of the time, according to Pro Football Focus. That's the 3rd lowest in the NFL. But when he was under pressure, he didn't play his best football. a 54.5 QB rating, and he threw 6 interceptions, just 4 touchdowns under pressure. So the decisions you make when scrambling, the decisions you make under duress, those are things I think Bo Nix and the Broncos can improve at. Let's talk about Jalen Waddle, this ex-Miami Dolphin receiver, for a second. You give up a first, you give up a third, you give up a fourth, you get a little something back from Miami, and you get Jalen Waddle. This man is 27 years old. He has speed, route running ability, yard after the catch production. He has not had over 1,000 yards the last 2 seasons. He did have over 1,000 his first 3. But if you look at Waddle's career average production, you're talking 81 catches, 1,098 yards, and 6 touchdowns per season. That's what he averages coming into Denver. I can't wait to see what Sean Payton does with Waddle, Courtland Sutton, and particularly Marvin Mims. This is a very decorated offensive line. First time in Bronco history they've had 2 All-Pros. Garrett Bowles at left tackle, Quinn Miners at right guard. Phenomenal players. And their statistics, according to Pro Football Focus, rank them as the #1 offensive line in football. And they did it with some injuries. Remember, Wattenberg was hurt, Powers was hurt, but Zach Strief, the offensive line coach, has done a hell of a job keeping this team ready to roll. Sean Payton sometimes will play 6 offensive linemen at a time. They'll use Pert, they'll use Frank Crum to play tight end. So they will go robust and get after you physically with 6 offensive linemen. And I think in the 3rd year of Bo Nix and Sean Payton, I think you're going to see Bo Nix with a lot more independence at the line of scrimmage. He'll have opportunities to change protections, fix plays, audible. I look for Nix to really turn up his dominance at the line of scrimmage in year 3. And I've always loved Sean Payton's ball distribution. If you're an eligible receiver playing for Payton, you're going to see the rock and you're going to get production. Tight ends, receivers, running backs. It's always been very unique to a Sean Payton system. Let's get into the individual players and a couple key guys to look for. We've already talked about Bo Nix, 24-10 in his first 2 years. That's as many wins as Russell Wilson had. That's a career high since 1950. 24 wins in your first 2 seasons. That says a lot. He's a team captain. What I love about Nix is how he plays on critical downs. And I'm talking about 3rd down, because you either make it or you punt. But on 3rd down, Bo Nix has converted them into first downs or touchdowns 92 times last year. Think about that. That's better than anybody in football. Justin Herbert had 90 first downs or touchdowns, and Josh Allen had 88. So on 3rd down, Bo Nix has made a lot of shit happen for Denver, man. It's a credit to him. The other thing that Pro Football ranks is big-time throws. And I'm always into that. I make reels here, and I put the big-time throws on a reel. Who was tied for 2nd last year with big-time throws? Bo Nix, 31. I'm talking about vertical shots in tight contested areas. He can really stick it in there. Bo Nix has 54 touchdown passes, 23 interceptions in his first 2 years. He is a dual threat. The man has 786 yards rushing in his first 2 seasons with 9 rushing touchdowns. But how did he get hurt? Running the ball. The more you run your quarterback, I hate to tell you this, the more suspect you are to being hurt. So I hope he hands the ball off more often than runs it. The backup quarterback still is Jarrett Stidham. Stidham struggled in the snow, 17 for 33, had 133 yards, 1 pick, 1 touchdown. You're going to see a lot of Stidham wearing number 8 in the preseason. And Sam Ehlinger returns as the number 3 quarterback. Ehlinger is the former Texas Longhorn. Sean Payton likes him. You're going to see those 2 quarterbacks play a ton in the preseason while Bo Nix gets 100% healthy. The offensive line, Garrett Bowles at left tackle. What a player he is. You know, in 675 pass protections, he didn't give up 1 sack. Not 1 sack. I mean, that's unbelievable, man. The guy played his ass off. He was an all-pro. First time in his 9-year career. At left guard will be Ben Powers, 74. He returns healthy. Luke Wattenberg, number 60, is the center. Very athletic, great communicator. Right guard is Quinn Miners, another all-pro player. 4.4% pressure allowed. If you just study Quinn Miners, number 77, you're like, holy shit, no one gets by this guy. He's tenacious, he's another team captain, and he is a hell of a player, a physical tone setter. Mike McGlinchey, number 69, the veteran right tackle. All 5 starters return. Let's hope they are healthy and stay healthy. They also have some good backups. Alex Palczewski at right guard, Frank Crum at right tackle. These guys are good players. And don't forget, they drafted Casey Cage. He's wearing number 78, 4th round pick out of Boise. If you're a Bronco fan, keep an eye on Cage, number 78. And Matt Pert, number 79, will play a lot at left tackle. He is a very quality backup for the Broncos. The running back situation for Denver, I think, is the position to keep an eye on as we look at the Broncos in the preseason. J.K. Dobbins just got a 2-year, $20 million extension. I think 8 of those $1 million are guaranteed. But when I watched Dobbins last year, he led the team in rushing, 772 yards, led the team with 153 carries, and he led the team with 21 running plays of over 10 yards. Problem is he got hurt. Dobbins got hurt. Question is, can he stay healthy? He hurt his ankle against the Raiders. He's had ACL, Achilles problems. He only averages 97 carries a year. Let's be honest, he's had a lot of injuries since 2020. But when he plays, he is a badass. Obviously, Sean Payton loves him. 27 is J.K. Dobbins. You won't see him in the preseason, but he is a big piece for Denver. Ask me, who do they go to when Dobbins is hurt? Well, it's R.J. Harvey, who was a 2nd-round pick last year. I like Harvey, especially in the passing game. But in the running game, not a lot happened. Just 19 carries, 57 yards in the 2 playoff games. Not a lot of broken tackles. Not a lot of yardage after contact. I mean, after Dobbins went down, I'm telling you, Denver was last in the NFL from the running back position with yards after contact. And you got to break tackles, man, in the National Football League. Harvey, he scored 12 touchdowns now. So the 2nd-year man out of Central Florida will be much more comfortable in Sean Payton's offense. He had 540 rushing, 356 yards receiving. He can run the choice route. Hell, he ran a choice takeoff for a touchdown against the Houston Texans. But they got to get more out of this running game, especially Harvey. And I'm going to go back to their 4th-round pick, Jonah Coleman. I think he's wearing number 20. There's a guy to watch in the preseason. He has 758 yards for Washington last year. What I loved about him is over 70% of it came after contact. And Coleman is really good in the passing game. The cat caught 79 passes. Do the Broncos throw the ball to the backs a lot? Yes, they do. So obviously that's very important. And what I really liked about Jonah Coleman is I thought he was one of the best pass protecting backs in football. So Coleman, R.J. Harvey, Dobbins, and remember, they still have Tyler Beatty, number 28, and they still got Jaleel McLaughlin, number 38. So they got competition at running back, and I'd keep an eye on that. The tight end position, they got to turn up, I think, the volume of yardage that they make and big plays and touchdowns that they make. They only scored 3 touchdowns last year combined at the tight end position. They only had 761 yards, which was 27th in the NFL. I think of Sean Payton. I think of Jimmy Graham. I think of Jeremy Shockey. Freaking Shockey. I tried to sign Shockey. He went to the Saints instead of the freaking Bucks. Pissed me off. But Evan Ingram is in the last year of his contract. Ingram wears number 1. Just 50 catches, 461 yards, and a touchdown. They still have number 82, Adam Troutman, former Dayton Flyer. Blocking tight end, does an excellent job in pass protection. They still got Nate Atkins. They still have Lucas Kroll. All 4 tight ends return. And they drafted a guy, number 80, Justin Jolly out of NC State. Keep an eye on this cat now. He caught 92 passes with 11 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. But I asked Justin Jolly this, are you going to block anybody, man? or are you just a receiver? I want to see. But Jolly's a good, interesting prospect. So is Bentley, their 7th-round draft choice out of Utah. So they got 6 tight ends, man, competing for usually 3 spots. I'd keep an eye on running back and tight end. And lastly, at wide receiver, don't anybody overlook Courtland Sutton. You know, Sutton's going to turn 31 years old in July. Happy birthday, Sutton. He is the first Bronco in the last 10 years to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. But Sutton is a Pro Bowler. He is a captain of the Broncos, and he is a go-to receiver in critical situations. But if you combine that with Jalen Waddle on the other side, you have 2 receivers that can do a lot of good things in the passing game. And they also have some returning players who are pretty damn good. Keep an eye on Pat Bryant. He's a 2nd-year player out of Illinois. They took him in the 3rd round. When healthy, he's a productive receiver. And Troy Franklin, hell, he's coming back for his 3rd season. And he really showed a lot of improvement last year out of the University of Oregon. He had 4 games last year with 80 yards or more. He catches a ton of quick screens. He caught 21 quick screens last year. But Franklin and Bryant with Sutton and Waddle, those are 4 good receivers. And don't forget number 19, Marvin Mims. Did you see him against Buffalo? 8 targets, 8 catches, 93 yards, touchdown. He's their gadget guy. They'll hand it to him on jet sweeps. He is a great return man, and he's an excellent emerging receiver. They also have little Jordan Humphrey, who's been with Sean Payton for years. They have 6 receivers, 6 tight ends, competition at running back. It's going to be a cool, fun preseason to watch this Bronco offense under Davis Webb, their new offensive coordinator. Okay, let's look at the Denver Bronco defense. And this is really where the rubber met the road last year. This operation under defensive coordinator Vance Joseph did a great job. Joseph was interviewed for multiple head coaching jobs. Fortunately for Denver, he returns. And this was the number 3 scoring defense, number 2 in total defense, number 2 against the run, number 7 against the pass. When you give up 18.3 points a game and 280 yards a game, good things are going to happen. It's a hard defense to run against, and when you fall behind in the down and distance, good God, they got a great pass rush and blitz package. The Broncos lost 3 defenders on defense. John Franklin Myers, a defensive tackle who had 7.5 sacks. They lost Dre Greenlaw, who started most of the season at linebacker, and they lost a veteran safety, P.J. Locke, who filled in for Brandon Jones late in the season. But they have a lot of continuity on defense. They do a lot of things well. The number one thing they do, I think, is they don't give up big plays. I mean, they do not blow coverages. They only gave up 6.1 yards per pass. That's number 1 in the NFL. So when you make teams go the long, hard way without a lot of explosive plays, in this noise against this crowd, good luck. Opposing quarterbacks only completed 57% of the passes. That's as good as there was in the NFL. They are very good tacklers, and they get to the ball with great effort. I mean, when you allow the fewest yards per play, 4.5 yards per play in the NFL, that means you're a sure tackler. Guys aren't slipping tackles and making big runs. They do an excellent job communicating with all this continuity, and they have a lot of depth, man, to keep each other fresh, and they can overcome some injuries. They play a 3-4 defense when their base defense is out there. So if you're on offense and you want to play 2 running backs or come in with 2 or 3 tight ends, you're going to see the Broncos in a 3-4 operation. And if you come in with 11 personnel, want to play 3 receivers, they'll get after your ass with their nickel and dime packages. They have a lot of inventory, and they play great situational football. They're the number 1 scoring defense in the red zone, only 42% touchdowns. They're great on 3rd down, and it's all because of the pressure that they get on the quarterback. A lot of teams nowadays, they count pressures. Oh, he got good pressure on the quarterback. Oh, good pressure. They get production. They knock your quarterback on his ass with the ball in his hand 68 times, man. 68 sacks. That's called production. So not only do they get heat on your quarterback, they put him on the ground, and they really do a great job. 131 sacks in the last 2 seasons by the Denver Broncos. Nobody else in the NFL has over 100. You guys see what I'm talking about now, don't you? Well, where's the pressure coming from? They got edge pressure from Benito and Cooper. They got inside pressure from Roach and Zach Allen. They got pressure because of these blitzes. Good God, they come from everywhere. And they got pressure because of sheer effort, man. Second effort production. A lot of guys get blocked and they're like, ah, shit, I'm blocked. Or, ah, shit, I'm getting double teamed. Ask Zach Allen about that. These guys are relentless ass kickers, and I love watching them play defense. And these 68 sacks, it doesn't just come from Benito. It doesn't just come from Zach Allen. It comes from a community, like a colony of ants. Man, they got 17 different guys on their team that recorded at least a half a sack. You ever see a piece of food on the ground, the ants just swarm all over it? That's like playing Denver. Hell, they got 4 guys last year with over 7 sacks. I mean, Benito had 14, Cooper had 8, John Franklin Myers had 7.5, and Zach Allen had 7. And then you turn on the film, there's 2 or 3 other guys, you're like, holy shit, who are they? They do an excellent job blitzing and playing multiple coverages from all over the place. It's Vance Joseph's scheme. I mean, they're going to get into this double A look where they got the 4 known rushers, but then they put 2 linebackers in the A gap between the center and the guard. And don't forget about Jaquan McMillan, the nickel coming off the edge. He had 4 sacks. Hufanga had 2 sacks from his safety position. So they're going to blitz DBs, they're going to blitz linebackers, and they're going to cut this pass rush loose, man, especially if you fall behind in the down and distance. But they will disguise. A lot of times they show pressure and they don't. They bluff it. But they won't disappoint you now. They will show pressure and they will bring pressure. And if you're not ready to pick it up as an offense, you'll go down hard. I saw him sack the Raider quarterback 10 times in one game. I would have got thrown out of the airplane for that. The one thing, though, about this Denver defense, I would like to challenge them, is we need more turnovers. To have 68 sacks is great, but 14 turnovers is unacceptable. Like it or not, when I coached the Bucs my first year, I told our defense, you guys are great, you guys are great. Well, if you're so great, how about scoring 9 touchdowns? And you know what? When Dwight Smith intercepted that pass against Gannon at the end of the game, Warren Sapp grabbed me. He said, you wanted 9? That's 9. I challenged Denver to turn up the turnovers. Instead of 14, get 27 turnovers. Turn 5 of those into returns for touchdowns. They cannot accept 14 takeaways from a defense that has this secondary and this pressure package. You guys agree, Jake? You're just nodding your head. You agree?
Yeah.
It's the depth. It's the relentless depth that they have that makes them good. They don't get tired. They have very capable people coming in throughout the game in waves. And they can play their best in the fourth quarter when the opposing offense has a chance to take the lead in victory. They'll cut you off. They can adjust. They have great coaches, and they adjust well on game day between possessions. They can really do an excellent job at halftime and in between series. What's cool about Denver is they're playing a lot more man coverage in the last couple years under Vance Joseph. I was studying it in 2023. Denver played 28% man. In 2024, they played 37% man. And in 2025, it was almost 40% man. So when I'm calling plays against Vance Joseph in Denver, number one, you got to have a protection plan. How to get Zach Allen, how to take care of the edge rushers. You have to have a great protection plan. Secondly, you got to work all week on picking up blitzes. I'm telling you, those are vital. But the third thing is when you call a play, what coverage are you calling it to beat? Cover 2, cover 6, palms, 3 deep, 3 under. Is it man? They play a multitude of coverages, and they can play some trick coverages, Jake. They can put Surtain out here on your best receiver one-on-one, and they can roll coverage to the other guy. Or they can put Surtain on your number 2 receiver and erase him and roll coverage to your number 1. It's a hell of a scheme and a lot of good shit to watch if you're really into defense. After watching Denver practice, the one thing you gotta understand is this defense has a lot of pride. And they love going out there and competing with Sean Payton because this is his offense. And he's running practice, and this defense, they take great pride in winning the drills. It's that feel that I get that really, I think, carries them to high competitive levels when the season starts. Let's take a look at the personnel quickly. Up front for the Broncos, Nick Bonitto, a 20.2% pressure rate, second only to Micah Parsons. He had 80 pressures, 14 sacks, big contract. He wears number 15. And on the other side is Jonathan Cooper. Cooper's had a hell of a 3-year run, 27 sacks in his last 3 seasons. Cooper wears number 0. There was an off-the-field incident, something to keep an eye on if you're a Bronco fan. But when those two men get tired, they still have some capable rushers. Tillman, number 92, he has 4 sacks. He intercepts a pass. He runs the ball like he's J.K. Dobbins, man. Tillman is an emerging player. And then when Cooper's tired, it's 52 Jonah Ellis. Ellis had 2.5 sacks. He's a badass. They got 4 good edge rushers. And it's the inside rush that is also particularly effective. Zach Allen, first team All-Pro. I mean, this guy hit the quarterback 47 times. Can you imagine that? He had 59 pressures from his defensive tackle position. That's 8 more pressures than Myles Garrett had. That's saying something, man. But Zach Allen, he sacks the quarterback. He causes a lot of movement by the quarterback, and he creates for Bonitto, Cooper, and company off the edge. Hell of a player. And the other guy is the emerging Malcolm Roach. Malcolm Roach is one of the great stories in Denver. John Franklin Myers gets hurt. Roach comes in. He has 1 sack in his 41 games as a New Orleans Saint. But he plays 13 games in Denver. He's got 5.5 sacks. Shit, I'm watching him play against Buffalo. He's got 1.5 sacks, 3 hits on the quarterback, a forced fumble, and a partridge in a pear tree, man. Roach is coming on. He's a guy to really look for to emerge and take it to another level. They also got to keep an eye on this guy, Inyoma Uwazurike. Don't you like saying that name? Uwazurike. Say it, Jake.
Uwazurike.
Yeah, he's a guy that's emerging, man. He has 4 or 5 sacks last season. So they have a third tackle that's pretty good. And then they drafted Tyler Onyedem. He's out of Texas A&M. He played 4 years at Iowa State. They like Onyedem. We got to keep an eye on him. Their number 3 pick out of A&M. Then the other guy is Savion Jones. I love watching second-year players. Usually those are the guys that show the most improvement. Hell's bell, Savion Jones was a 3rd-round pick 2 years ago. He only played in 3 games, 31 snaps. So you better keep an eye on Jones, Onyedem. These are 2 young guys that got to pick up the slack for John Franklin Myers. The linebacking core, they are led by the Gruden Grinder Deluxe, number 49, Alex Singleton. I mean, here's a guy 2 years ago, blows his knee out down here in Tampa, plays the rest of the game with it. And then he had testicular cancer last year. He has an operation. He misses 1 game, comes back. He leads the Broncos in tackles again with 135. He's bounced around from practice squads. This guy went to Canada and kicked ass. If you like football, you like 49 Singleton. He won't come off the field ever. Hell of a player. The other guy is Justin Sternad from right here in Tampa. Dre Greenlaw left. Sternad will be the every down linebacker playing opposite Singleton. Played in 16 games last year. He had 8 starts, 52 tackles, 4.5 sacks. He'll run right over your back now. He also had an interception. And then they got a couple backup linebackers. If I were a Bronco fan, I would want to see Turner, number 55 out of Michigan State. Let me see what you can do. And I want to take a look at Reed, number 47 out of Utah. These are young linebackers that are going to play a ton in the preseason. And don't forget that guy they took in the 7th round, number 50, Red Murdoch from Buffalo. He sounds like he's a Yellowstone Ranger or something. You know, but these linebackers, okay, they do a lot in terms of communication. Shit, they'll call the defense. They'll hear the quarterback audible. They'll check out of the defense and into another one. So these guys got to be extremely sharp. So they have a hell of a front 7. And they also have the MVP of the league on defense 2 years ago, Pat Surtain. This guy's unbelievable. Surtain wears number 2. So if you're coaching quarterbacks against Denver, don't fuck around with that guy. Okay, don't throw it over there. Or you're adult. What's adult?
Stupid fellow.
He had 12 PBUs last year. He's a great player. He allows him to do so much. He can play zero coverage. You can roll the other way. He can play trap coverage. He can play whatever he wants, and he's a good tackler. And I'll say this, when he was out last year with that injury for a few games, you watch number 31, Chris Abrams Drain? Shit. You can see why Jim Leonard left as the defensive coordinator of the Bills. He's a good young corner. On the other side is Riley Moss. And Riley Moss, he takes a lot of heat, I think, because people go after him all the time. He was targeted 116 times, by far more than everybody else. Why do you think they targeted him, Clay?
Why?
Because they don't want to throw at Surtain. God, what kind of a quick learner are you, Clay? He did have 10 pass interference penalties. I watched all 10. 4 of them are complete bullshit. Come on, refs. How about getting some consistency in how we call pass interference? But Riley Moss, when you look at the completion percentage, the quarterback rating allowed, it's pretty damn good, man. And he has some thick skin, man. He keeps coming after you play after play. They also have an excellent nickel corner, Jaquan McMillan. Not many guys have 4 sacks from the nickel corner position. Matter of fact, he led all defensive backs with 4 sacks. This guy's a hell of a player, man. He makes plays. He intercepts passes. He's got great short area quickness. He plays with some pop. McMillan was tendered a second-round draft choice. So obviously they're counting on McMillan to remain as their nickel corner, even though they drafted Barron, number 23, 2 years ago in the first round. But McMillan has played 81% of the plays. He's a every down badass. I love this secondary. And ask me who I love the most on their defense, Jake.
Who?
It's not Singleton or Zach Allen. It's my man, Hufanga. Hufanga, the ex-49er. He is the enforcer in the middle of this defense. He has some great years in San Francisco. He wears number 9, but he's coming off a career year in Denver. He had 11 PBUs, 106 tackles, 67 solos. I mean, this guy had 12 run stuffs. That's 0 yards or negative yards from a safety position. He had 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. Hufanga! If you catch the ball in the middle of the field, you better get down, man. I like this guy. And Brandon Jones returns. You know, he hurt himself and missed the playoff run. I think they missed him. He has 30 games. His last 30 games in Denver, 28 starts. This guy's very productive. Almost 200 tackles, 4 picks, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. It allows these safeties to play down, play up. They can do a lot of different things in coverage. Excellent safeties on the back end. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Brandon Jones and Hufanga in the preseason. I think you're going to see some of these young players. We've already talked about Devin Key at safety. He's going to make the team because he's so valuable in special teams. Shit, 26 tackles. But keep an eye on Miles Scott. He's going to be wearing number 39. He's a 7th-round draft pick out of Illinois. Good player. And over here, we're not going to see Hufanga. Keep an eye on this J.L. Skinner out of Boise. He's wearing number 34. There's some young safety men. Obviously, with the loss of P.J. Locke, they got to find somebody that can be reliable and versatile to replace him because he was good. This is a hell of a defense. They should be very, very good again. But keep an eye on some of the depth issues up front, some of these young linebackers, and some of the competition for the backup corner spots. I'm really big on that word continuity, especially when you have continuity on a team that won 15 games. They got a great coach in Sean Payton. Provided Bo Nix is healthy and this defense does what it continues to do the last couple years, I think Denver's going to win the West again, even though they have a tough schedule. Now we can shift our focus to the LA Chargers. Okay, let's talk about the LA Chargers. Who's your favorite team, Jake?
Chargers.
The Chargers. They went 11-6 last year. Very good season. They lost in the first round. They were 5-1 in the division. But let's take a look at the Chargers. Their general manager, Joe Horvitz. He's done a heck of a job, man. They've got back-to-back 11-win seasons. They're looking for 3 straight seasons with double-digit wins. The Chargers haven't done that since the Don Coryell years. Eric Coryell, 1979 to 1981. So you got to put things in perspective. The Chargers, Coach Harbaugh, Joe Horvitz have done an excellent job. But when I think of the Chargers, that word almost comes into play. You know, Herbert is almost healthy. Herbert almost carried the Chargers to the Super Bowl. The defense almost carried the Chargers to a playoff win. They're close. And I'm hoping these offseason acquisitions push them over the top. It could get very interesting. Everybody's talking about the Rams. Don't forget the Chargers. Let's take a look at who's coming and who's going. 2 of the biggest additions to the Chargers staff are their new coordinators. Mike McDaniel, the ex-head coach of the Dolphins, he's in LA now calling the shots. It'll be a brand new scheme. It'll be dramatically different than the one you saw last year with Greg Roman. They also brought in Chris O'Leary. He was the defensive coordinator at Western Michigan last year. Everybody's saying, why would you bring in a guy from the Mid-America Conference? Shit, there's a lot of good coaches in the MAC, man. Plus, O'Leary was a secondary coach with the Chargers a couple years before he went to Western Michigan. So he does have a lot of intel with Jesse Minter's scheme. Jesse Minter, the former defensive coordinator, left and went to become a head coach with the Ravens. So 2 new coordinators, that's big. On offense, they brought in Keaton Mitchell, the former Baltimore Raven running back. Everybody's like, who the hell is this guy? Let me tell you something. This is a guy, offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel had to have. He runs 4-3-7. He's going to be used a little bit like Devon Achane was in Miami. A lot of people forgot. Achane was picked really as a complimentary back to Raheem Mostert. But then all of a sudden, Achane started going crazy. Well, this guy, Keaton Mitchell, I believe the Chargers have big plans for him. They also brought in Alec Ingold, one of my former players, to play fullback. He's been all pro. So that tells me LA is going to use a lot of 2-back sets, just like they did in Miami. They also brought in a couple new offensive linemen. Thank God, because they were all hurt last year. They brought in a new center, Tyler Biadasz, the former center with the Dallas Cowboys. He played with the Commanders last year. He is a really good center, man. So they're going to have a new guy in the pivot. They also brought in Cole Strange, former first-round pick of the Patriots. He played guard for the Dolphins last year when Mike McDaniel was the head coach. So 2 new interior linemen. They brought in 2 new tight ends. The ex-Cleveland Brown David Njoku. Guy's a really good receiving tight end when healthy. And they brought in one of my favorite sleepers in free agency, Charlie Kolar. Very good blocking tight end from the Ravens, and he's a very underrated pass receiver. 2 good interior linemen, 2 good tight ends, 2 good running backs. They also brought in a great big defensive tackle, Tomlinson, Dalvin Tomlinson. He was recently with the Cleveland Browns. Remember, when somebody's coming, somebody's what? Going. Who'd they lose? Obviously, Jesse Minter, D-coordinator to Baltimore. Greg Roman, offensive coordinator, was let go. 2 new coordinators. They lost Najee Harris, the former running back with the Steelers, had the eye injury. Things didn't work out. He's gone. They let 2 tight ends go, Tyler Conklin and Will Dissly, gone. So you bring in 2 new tight ends, you get rid of 2 others. They also lost some pretty good defensive linemen. Odafe Owe, who was brought over to LA in a trade with Baltimore, had 7.5 sacks as a Charger. He left and he signed with the Washington Commanders. They lost 2 defensive tackles, Deshaun Hand and Tito Ogbonnia. Ogbonnia left for the Cowboys. So they lost some interior players and a really good edge player. They also lost cornerback Benjamin St. Juste. He's also out of town. So there you have the coming and the going. They also had an interesting draft. Focus on this first-round draft choice. Akeem Messidor from the Miami Hurricanes. We'll get into him in a minute. He was one of my favorite players. I know he's 25 years old. Everybody's up in arms about that. He's a badass, man. That really helps them overcome the loss of Odafe Owe, who we just talked about. But Messidor can play inside or out. He's really good. They also drafted Jake Slaughter in the second round. He's an excellent center. Why draft a center? You just signed a center in free agency. I think Slaughter is the future center, the backup center. I think he's going to compete for the starting left guard position because they lost Zion Johnson. If somebody's going, somebody's coming. They also lost their center, Bradley Bozeman. Bradley Bozeman left, hence they signed Tyler Biadasz. Knock on wood if you're with me. So that's very important. They also drafted in the fourth round Brennan Thompson. This is a big guy to think about here. He's 5'9", 164. This guy runs 4.26. That is flying, man. He's a little bit like Tyreek Hill from a measurable standpoint. Brennan Thompson is a big part of the Mike McDaniel thinking. He likes speed. They also lost right now Keenan Allen, veteran receiver. They've left the door open for him, but if someone's going, somebody's coming. They also drafted Genesis Smith in the fourth round, a good safety out of Arizona. They brought in the fifth round, Nick Barrett, a D lineman from South Carolina. They also drafted two guards in the late rounds, Logan Taylor out of Boston College and Alex Harkey out of Oregon. So they've really tried to get some depth and some future players on the interior offensive line. The Chargers used a lot of their cap space in the offseason to sign their own players. They gave Derwin James a huge $76 million three-year extension. They brought back Tart, a very good defensive tackle. They brought back Khalil Mack on a one-year, $18 million contract. And they went out and they re-signed Penning, an offensive guard, Pipkins, an offensive tackle. They also re-signed their running back, Kamani Vidal, who had a heck of a year last year given all the injuries they had. The big story to me with the Chargers is they got to address the injuries they suffered as a team last year. I don't know if it was the supplements they weren't taking. I don't know what the hell it was. The pregame meals, maybe the practices, maybe it was a fluke. But I'm sure Coach Harbaugh is taking a good look at what the hell happened. I mean, we lose Slater and Alt, both of our tackles. Najee Harris hurts his eye before camp starts. Quentin Johnston had a hamstring. Mekhi Becton got hurt. Bud Dupree got hurt. Herbert had an assorted injury list. Denzel Perryman got hurt. Trey Pipkins. They had so many freaking injuries. I'm almost hurt talking about it. Makes me sick. They got to address the injuries. Whatever happened can't happen again. And the Chargers, they had a lackluster finish to the season. They finished with 3 straight losses. They only scored 16 points, 3 points, and 3 points in those 3 losses. And obviously with the injuries, the lack of production, they brought in a new offensive coach, a lot of new offensive linemen, and we are going to see a new script here in LA. If you listen carefully, you start listening to a lot of noise. Everybody's on the Chargers' ass because of those 3 straight playoff losses. And I'm sure Justin Herbert and Coach Harbaugh feel the sting the most. But the only way to cure their problems in the playoffs is to get back to the playoffs and kick somebody's ass. So I think that's the big thing. Don't listen to the noise, but they did not play well in that 16-3 loss to the New England Patriots. 6 sacks, 207 yards, and it was an obvious butt kicking. Last couple things. The schedule this year for the Chargers is a challenge. Very important they come out of the chute and win these first 2 games. They're very winnable. They open up with Arizona and the Raiders. They start off 2-0, but I think if you look at their schedule from week 3 to 10, good God, it's a challenge, man, because they got to go at Buffalo, at Seattle. That's a long flight from LA, just so you know. Then they play Denver and the Chiefs at home. Tough freaking games. Then they got to go play at the Rams, who have already won the Super Bowl. They just got fitted for their ring. And then they got to play the Texans, who are a pain in the ass. And then they got to go play at Baltimore. So in that time frame, they play the last 4 MVPs in the NFL. They got to stop Stafford, Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson. I'll send you a Hallmark card. Good luck. But it's going to be a real challenge. New offensive system, a new offensive nucleus of players. They brought in 7 new offensive linemen in free agency in the draft, rightfully so. Keaton Mitchell is a name to keep an eye on, fantasy football fans. This guy could really explode onto the scene with Mike McDaniel. Brennan Thompson. This young man had 1,000+ yards in the SEC. He led the SEC in receiving yards. This guy is a jet. Keep an eye on him. And this tight end package, the combination of Oronde Gadsden, David Njoku, and my friend Charlie Kolar, gives Jim Harbaugh the best group of tight ends he's ever had. So they might be in 12 or 13 personnel. The turnover ratio was pretty good for the Chargers. They were 11th in the league at +2. Their defense took it away 23 times, 19 interceptions, and they gave it away 21 times, hence their +2. Pretty good job by the Chargers. You would expect that from a Harbaugh coach team. Very important, when you play the Chargers, you realize they have the best kicker in the NFL. We had a chance to sit down with Cameron Dicker, the kicker, when we were at the Super Bowl. What a great guy he is. He's the only kicker with a number of qualifying kicks that's got over a 90% accuracy rate. He's 93.5% all time. I mean, he's 21 for 27 from beyond 50 yards. They got a good punter, J.K. Scott, who also holds. This is a very good football team going under what looks like a lot of changes. It should be interesting.
You've had a lot of changes on your coaching staff.
Oh, yeah.
New offensive coordinator, Coach McDaniel. You got a new defensive coordinator, but you still have your special teams coach.
Yeah.
How close are the Chargers? I know making the playoffs is a signal that you're close.
Yeah.
But do you guys feel like you could be in this game yourselves right now if you're healthy?
100%. I think everybody was a little bit disappointed with how it ended for us. Everybody was really excited because we're able to compete with the best of the best. But that's the same for a lot of teams in this league, right? Everybody's able to compete. But we have probably the most talented quarterback in the NFL throwing wise. The things we get to see every single day, it's like, okay, this is different. And then obviously some big injuries at our tackle positions, which was a bummer for the team, but guys stepped up, did what they needed to do, and got us into the playoffs, and then now we got to figure it out.
Okay, this Chargers offense, obviously we got a lot of stuff on this board, man. But when you look at them statistically, 20th in the league in scoring, not good enough. They also were 12th in total, 12th in rushing, and 18th in passing. We already said they gave it away 21 times. They were inconsistent. They've got a new offensive coordinator, and the system will be dramatically different from the one you saw the last couple years under Greg Roman. Coach McDaniel, he's a cool guy, man. You're going to see some really cool outfits, some really cool press conferences, and you're going to see some really cool plays. He does a lot of strange formations, a lot of motions. There's a lot of unpredictability. And what personnel grouping will the Chargers emphasize? I got a feeling you're going to see a good mixture. 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets, perhaps some 2-back sets, and some 11 personnel. McDaniel has the personnel, I believe, to mix it up quite well. Greg Roman, the former offensive coordinator, just like Mike McDaniel, they like to use a lot of heavy personnel. 2 tight ends, 2 backs, and attack a base defense. Make the defense come out there with just 4 defensive backs. Make them play a base defense. Not a lot of teams play that anymore because everybody's in 11 personnel, as you know. But when I'm talking about getting heavy, when you can jump out there with Charlie Kolar and you can jump out there with Alec Ingold and you got Slater and Alt back and you got Biotish at center, holy shit. You got some guys that can really come off the ball and do some good things physically. They've also added speed. When I think of Mike McDaniel, I think of those Dolphin teams in 2022 and 2023. Tyreek Hill, 4.28. Waddle, 4.34. And Achane, 4.27. I'm sure those three guys are like, man, I'm faster than that. But those guys are fast. Mike McDaniel loves speed. That's why they went out and signed Keaton Mitchell, 4.37 from the Ravens, coming out of the backfield. That's why they drafted Thompson out of Mississippi State, fastest guy at the combine, 4.26. Names to keep an eye on. But when you look at the Dolphin offense over the McDaniel era, remember, they were 6th in total offense in 2022. They led the NFL in 2023, but in 2024 they took a step back. They were 18th. And this past year they were 26th. And Tua, who they gave a lot of money to at quarterback, didn't take it up a notch. He was taken out of town and the lineup. So I think McDaniel's in a perfect spot right now. He's got a chance to really prove himself again with a brand new cast of characters that fortunately includes arguably the best quarterback in football, Justin Herbert. You know, when you think of Jim Harbaugh, especially when he was with Greg Roman all those 49er years, you think of a physical ball control offense. And last year, the Chargers were second in the NFL, 32 minutes and 40 seconds of possession time. But this is a pass-first offense. I don't care what you say with Herbert at quarterback. In 2025, they threw it 55% of the time. In 2024, they threw it almost 58% of the time. That's with Greg Roman and Harbaugh. The 3 prior years with Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, they threw it over 60% of the time. I got a feeling they're going to throw the ball quite a bit with Herbert. Don't you? Let's talk about Herbert for a second. I have heard Coach McDaniel at his press conferences say, we don't want Herbert to feel like he has to go above and beyond and be Superman every week. Well, Josh Allen is Superman for Buffalo. Pat Mahomes is Superman for the Chiefs. Lamar's Superman. I kind of like Superman personally, but I've heard he's going to get him some easier throws. I've always been looking for easy throws in the NFL. I just don't see many. But I can't wait to see exactly what he's talking about and how it transpires. It's going to be a lot of fun as it develops in training camp. You can't argue with production. Get refamiliarized with Herbert. In his first 6 seasons, he's the only quarterback in NFL history to throw for over 3,000 yards, over 20 touchdowns, and over 65% in all 6. That's pretty impressive. He's also thrown for 24,820 yards in his first 6 seasons. That's second all-time to Peyton Manning, who's got about 3 yards more. And he's also thrown for 163 touchdowns. The man has got great production, playing for Steichen, Moore, Greg Roman. He's going to have production with McDaniel. Let's not kid ourselves. But Herbert knows he's got to address this 0-3 playoff record because his statistics in those 3 playoff games have plummeted. Only 54% with 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And I know deep down that pisses him off, me even talking about it. And he can't resolve that until he gets to the playoffs, but that's the reality. He's got to handle that noise. The pass offense with Mike McDaniel is going to be a lot quicker. Quicker passes, quicker drops, quicker reads, quicker releases. They're going to try to quicken the process for Justin Herbert. When you hold the ball over 2.4 seconds, that's when the protection broke down last year. That's when he got sacked. That's when he got hit a lot. Normally, when you hold the ball longer, the pass rushers have longer to get there too. Duh. But in 2025, with this depleted, beat-up offensive line, when Justin Herbert held the ball between 2.4 and 3.5 seconds, he got sacked 49 times. He got sacked 54 times last year, but 49 times or was when he was holding that ball over 2.5 seconds. Now, when you go back and watch Tua in Miami, he had one of the quickest releases in the NFL last year. He only held the ball for about 2.65 seconds. But did it help him? No, he was benched himself. So I don't know if you really want to put a stopwatch on the quarterback on the practice field. I never believed that. I learned that from Coach Holmgren and Coach Walsh. We don't want you to even think you're going to have that much time. And we don't want to rush you either. But the bottom line is, if they don't pass protect better, and if they keep getting Justin Herbert hurt and beat up, they're going to be a quick out in the playoffs if they get there. The Chargers, They have to get a better scheme. They got to get a better protection plan. They went out and tried to get better players, but now these players, they got to freaking go out there and execute better around Herbert. The biggest part of the Chargers offense last year was Herbert's scramble offense. Do you know that he ran for 469 yards on scramble runs? I mean, he had a ton of these runs were over 10-yard gains. 15 times he scrambled for 10 yards or more. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they got to get Herbert to get rid of the ball in the pocket on time and reduce the amount of hits that he's taken scrambling. But you got to admit, this guy is a hell of a scrambler when he takes off. Let's talk about the running game. You know, the Chargers drafted Omarion Hampton in the first round out of North Carolina. I love this back. Big. He can run inside or out. He's a good receiver. He was off to a very good start. Then he had a freak injury against the New York Giants. I think it was week 5. He ends up with 545 yards. He does catch the ball out of the backfield extremely well. But when you watch Hampton run after run after run, over 50% of the time, the guy gets hit in the backfield, man. He's got to get restarted. They didn't block the running plays very well either. And he was stuffed for 0 yards or less on 23% of his runs. Some of the greatest 2- and 3-yard runs in the NFL were made by Omarion Hampton. He makes a defender miss 30% of the time. So he's got great elusiveness for a big back. If they can just keep him healthy and block these plays better, they might have one hell of a back, man, that not a lot of people know a lot about. The other thing to think about with Hampton and Keaton Mitchell, who they signed from the Baltimore Ravens, is Mike McDaniel is going to use the running backs a lot more in the passing game. Do you know that in the last 2 years, Devon Achane has 145 catches and 10 touchdowns? Both of those numbers lead the running backs in the NFL. So I expect more catches for Hampton, more catches for Mitchell. If you're a fantasy football fan out there, you ought to lock that in. I think they need more consistency from their wide receivers and tight ends. And they got to come up with an identity. We got to find out what's going on with Keenan Allen. I know he's the all-time leading receiver of the Chargers. They've left the light on for him to perhaps come back, but I wouldn't expect him to come back and play for the Chargers. He and Herbert obviously got a great relationship. On third down last year, who was the number 1 target for the Chargers? It was Keenan Allen. He had 29 catches that converted first downs on third down last year. He had over 60 yards receiving in his first 3 games, but for the rest of the season, he only went over 60 one time. He got a lot of targets, 122 targets last year. He caught 81 passes for a 9.6 average. I think they want to move on from Allen and use some of their new tight ends and emerging young receivers. What's really cool about the Chargers as they head into training camp is these wide receivers are competing against these tight ends, and they're competing against the running backs to see what personnel group they want to be in. When I was a coach, everybody on the receiving room wanted to be in 11 personnel. They wanted to play 3 at a time. As soon as I went to 12 personnel, 2 tight ends come into the game, one of the receivers comes out. The receiver's on the sideline. What the hell are you taking me out of the game for? Then you go to 21 personnel, there's only 2 receivers. And if you go to 13 or 22 personnel, there's only 1 receiver in the game. That really pisses them off. So I used to tell our guys, we're going to play the best guys. So when we go out and practice, if you want to be in 11, make sure this 11 personnel flows, man. If you want to be in 12 tight ends, make it dance. And if you want to be in a 2-back set, Ingold, you want to be in a good 2-back set, Omarion Hampton, make sure this shit looks good. So these guys are competing with one another, and I think that might bring the best out of this offense. The key wide receiver for the Chargers for me is Quentin Johnston, number 1. This guy led the Chargers the last 2 years with 8 touchdowns a season. This guy's a big play vertical receiver. He's in a contract season. Man, he's powerful. He's explosive. He had 735 yards last season. And I am telling you, in a contract season, he's playing for a lot of money. I expect to see a really good year out of Quentin Johnston. The Achilles heel of the Chargers last year was their offensive line. And the injuries were ridiculous. But it's very important we recognize the facts. They were graded as the worst in football. 54% of the time, the quarterback was under pressure. 54 sacks allowed. There's a new offensive line coach, Charger fans, Butch Barry. He comes to LA from Miami with Coach McDaniel. I think that's very important. There's some continuity and some camaraderie there between the coaches. But this offensive line, they got to get healthy. They got to stay healthy, Jake. They got to become formidable. And I think it's important that the coaching staff doesn't baby them. You can't go out there and say, "Ooh, be careful, there's a pile of bodies." Bullshit. They got to put some weight on their front hands. They got to come off and collectively start kicking ass. They got first-round picks, Slater and Alt. Both of them are Pro Bowlers, badasses. I mean, if those two guys are what they're supposed to be, that's as good as it gets in pro football. Biotish at center, he's a badass. Cole Strange comes over from Miami. He's a former first-round pick. He got 2 years, $13 million, and he knows McDaniel's scheme. They just drafted Slaughter in the second freaking round. He should be a capable left guard, and they also re-signed Trevor Penning, who's a former first-rounder of the Saints. They got a lot of good linemen. They've added some depth, and it could get real interesting if these guys become formidable. Real quick, let's take a look at the offensive depth chart. We already talked about the offensive line. Keep an eye on Travis Burke, number 77 at right tackle. He's a rookie fourth-round pick out of Memphis. I think you'll see a lot of him in the preseason. Over here on the left side, how much will Slater play? Remember, Slater had a serious knee injury, didn't play the entire season last year. Will Coach Harbaugh let Slater play a little bit at left tackle to get his timing back? They also re-signed Trey Pipkins, so they've got 4 pretty good tackles. Biotish is the new center. He'll probably get a little bit of work in just from a communication standpoint, and I think their rookie, Jake Slaughter, will back up Biotish this season, and in the long term, he'll be the answer. At quarterback, Herbert is the man, we know that, but who's the backup, Jake? I got to ask you. They're continuing to develop Trey Lance, who was a disappointment with the 49ers, disappointment with Dallas. And when he played last year, he completed 47% of his passes, and they didn't score any touchdowns. I worry about the backup quarterback position. They also got a third-string quarterback, DJ. Tell me, Jake. There you have it. He's the third-string quarterback. That's why I got out of broadcasting. I just couldn't pronounce that name. What is it, Jake? You're going to see a lot of DJ in the preseason. But those backup quarterbacks in L.A., man, they got a lot to prove if Herbert goes down. At running back, Omarion Hampton could be a second-year breakout player. I don't like him. I love him. I think he's really good as a runner and a receiver. And Keaton Mitchell, I am telling you, man, when you look at this guy play, remember, he missed the whole 2024 season with a knee injury. This man averages 6.3 yards a carry in the National Football League. 121 carries, 767 yards. And I remember going to Baltimore during OTAs last year, and I was watching. Every time Mitchell gets in the game, the Raven players are like, "Hey, he's in there." There's a lot of curiosity and excitement with Keaton Mitchell. And I tell you, McDaniel loves this speed element coming out of the backfield. Alec Ingold is a huge addition. He wears number 30. He's an excellent fullback, H-back, and he's a good receiver and short yardage runner. And don't forget Kamani Vidal. He bailed the Chargers out last year. Hell, he led them with 643 yards rushing. He's a very good all-purpose back. And I think one of the coolest competitions is at wide receiver. We've already talked about number 1, Quentin Johnson. I think it's a really important season for him. A guy to keep an eye on is Ladd McConkey. He'll be in his 3rd season out of Georgia. With Keenan Allen coming back last year, I think McConkey's targets went down, and so did his production. He had 1,149 yards and 7 touchdowns without Keenan Allen as a rookie. But with Keenan Allen last year, he fell to 777 and just 4 touchdowns. 62% of his routes came in the slot. This guy's got twitch. This guy's very good after the catch. Tough as shit, man. He'll block you. And I love McConkey and Johnston. And on the strong side, they have Trey Harris, number 9. Good player out of Ole Miss. Trey Harris, not a ton of production, just 30 catches, 324 yards. But keep an eye on the rookie, number 89, Brennan Thompson. 4th round pick out of Mississippi State. If you remember Tyreek Hill, I don't want to compare him to Tyreek Hill, but physically they're the same size and they are very fast. This cat had 1,000 yards at Mississippi State, and I know McDaniel knows how to use speed. They also have Keandre Lambert-Smith, another young receiver who caught 5 catches, has speed to get down the field, played at Auburn, played at Penn State. So they have some young receivers, some competition that I really like, a healthy offensive line with a lot of new players. This is going to be a very important training camp as they learn Mike McDaniel's new offense. Okay, let's talk about this Chargers defense. We know there's a new defensive coordinator. And the easy thing to say at the press conference is, well, Coach O'Leary, Chris O'Leary, he's been here before. A lot of the defensive coaches are still intact. Our scheme won't change. Bullshit. Your scheme has to change and evolve and adapt every year because you don't play the same teams and you don't have the same players. So you got to tweak it. When you got to go play Matt Stafford, when you got to go play Lamar Jackson, the world champions on the road, and then you got to play some of the teams that they're playing, you got to adapt and evolve. And I'm sure Coach O'Leary is very excited to put his stamp on what this Charger defense can and will be. Last year, they were very good. They were 9th in scoring defense, 5th in total defense. They only gave up 285 yards a game. That's why Jesse Minter got the head coaching job of the Baltimore Ravens. They were 8th against the run, 5th against the pass. And when I study them carefully, they do an excellent job defending the pass. And let's be honest, man, that's where the big plays are. And they did a great job in LA. Just a 75.0 QBR. If you're a football coach out there or want to be a football coach, write down QBR, quarterback rating. That's very important to defensive coaches. We want that to be as low as possible. If the QBR is below 75, we're winning the game. And that's how good this Charger secondary and defense was. That's a key stat. They only gave up 60.8% completions. That's 5th. They gave up 180 passing yards a game. That's top 5. That's 4th. They only gave up 16 touchdown passes in 17 regular season games. 3rd. They only gave up 30 passes of over 20 yards. That's 2nd. And they had 19 interceptions. Guess what? That's 3rd. So they're in the top 5 of just about every category there is defending the pass. But, you know, when you watch your defense play, I used to say this to our guys in Tampa, not that it mattered. Even though we had all these Hall of Famers, Lynch and Barber, Sapp, Simeon Rice, Derek Brooks, I used to say we can only judge our defense against the best offenses. That's the truth. And last year, they saw Geno Smith and the Raiders twice. It wasn't a very good offense. That was the 32nd ranked offense. The Saints had a rookie quarterback. Cam Ward was a rookie quarterback. Minnesota didn't have a quarterback. This year, this Charger defense, Jake, they get to see the best. Mahomes twice. They're going to get to see Stafford, the MVP, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. They're going to get to see them all. So I cannot wait to see this great Charger secondary and pass defense against the best pass offenses on the planet. You know, in the NFL, it's like college football now. It's like high school football. There's a lot of bubble screens, bullshit quick screens. You know what I mean? I can't take it. That's why I collect the vomit bags on airplanes. I don't like these short little bubble screens. When you throw a real pass over 10 yards against the Charger defense, I'm talking throw it over 10 yards, they had 14 interceptions. That's why I love the Charger defense. Forget about all these underneath little crappy bubble screens. When you throw the ball down the field, they hit your quarterback, they intercept passes, and that is the big reason that this Charger defense is formidable, man. They challenge you to throw it. They play a lot of zone coverage, over 80% zone coverage the last 2 seasons under Jesse Minter. That doesn't mean it's easy to attack. They could play all kinds of different coverages, man, and they mix it in with some blitzes. Everybody says, they only blitz 21.4% of the time. But let me tell you, that is a real effective changeup because the Chargers get almost a 50% pressure rate when they blitz. They lull you to sleep. We're playing zone. We're playing zone. We're playing zone. Kapow! They blitz your ass, man. They got a very good change-up blitz package. They mix up all these zone coverages. They sprinkle in some man-to-man, and they get after your ass with a very good nucleus of players. They're also good against the run. I love plays that get stuffed. I used to love it when our defense was out there. They ran the ball, boom, a 1-yard loss or no gain. Any run that gains 0 or less, it's a stuff. And 19.5% of the runs against the Chargers last year got stuffed. And that forces you into obvious passing situations, and that's when the Chargers secondary really exerts itself. The one thing I think this Charger defense can and will do better this year is tackle. You know, if you study Pro Football Focus, I like to see who are the best tackling teams. You know the Chargers miss tackles on 15.8% of their plays? They miss more tackles than anybody. The good thing for them is they got some relentless effort players that clean up the messes, but they can tackle better collectively, and if they do, that could be a big winning edge for this defense. Keep in mind, the Chargers, they have a couple players that they got to replace, but they have a lot of continuity. That's why they went out and signed Chris O'Leary as the new coordinator. He's been with Coach Minter. He's been with Coach Harbaugh. He's been with these players. I know they lost Obanya to the Cowboys. They lost Deshaun Hand. They lost Oweh to the Commanders. Other than that, they got a lot of guys coming back. Let's get into the defensive personnel. The defensive line, the front four, I would like to call out Mike Elston. He's the defensive line coach of these Chargers. I think Coach Harbaugh went to Coach Elston and said, hey, do you want to interview for the coordinator job? I think Elston said, no, I want to be the best defensive line coach on the planet. And he might be. This guy does a hell of a job, man. I mean, they got 4 guys on the edge I think are very interesting. Number 52, Khalil Mack. He's been to 9 Pro Bowls. He has 113 sacks. 5.5 sacks last year, but he had that elbow injury. If he's healthy, he is a hell of a player. And for all you people that think I didn't want Khalil Mack, please, he's a hell of a player. They also went out and drafted Akeem Mesidor out of Miami. He had 12.5 sacks. He led the ACC. He was in college for 6 years. I know he transferred. Let me tell you about Mesidor. He led the country in effort. He's a badass. He can rush on the right side, the left side. He can go inside. I would put Mesidor right over there behind Khalil Mack and say, watch him work. Learn from Khalil Mack. Don't you think that's a good idea, Jake? Yep. On the other side, it's one of my top 5 favorite players in pro football. I love saying this name, just like their quarterback. What's the quarterback's name?
Uyunglele.
I love that name. I love Tuli Tuipolotu. You like that name right there? He wears number 45. Only 23 years old. Tuli had 13 sacks last year and 60 pressures. He led the Chargers in both categories. He can go inside. He can play on both sides. That's 3 really good rushers. And Tuli, had 13 sacks in his first 2 seasons. Shit, he had 13 last year. And this guy's getting a lot of protection plans slid his way. What a relentless player he is. The 4th rusher to keep an eye on is their 4th round pick from a year ago, Kyle Kennard. Don't know much about Kennard, but he's going to compete to get some playing time. He better pick it up. Bud Dupree, number 48, the ex-Pittsburgh Steeler, former first rounder out of Kentucky, is still in town. That's 5 pretty damn good players on the edge. They're also young and very talented inside, and I think they're led by T.R. Tart. I love this guy, out of Florida International. He really came on last year. He had 32 tackles, 4 TFLs. He had 17 of those run stuffs. I mean, this guy can really separate from blocks and make tackles. He's a very thick, very physical player. And when I heard Coach Elston talking, they're talking about playing Tart on the edge more. meaning he's going to play on the outside shoulder of the guard, so they can really enhance his playmaking skills. I look for Tart to have a big year. The other defensive tackles to keep an eye on, I love this guy, number 92, Justin Eboigbe. I love that guy. He's out of Alabama. I'm working on his name too, but he only played 40% of the plays last year. Remember, they lost a couple D tackles, so I think Eboigbe is going to have to really step up, and I know they like him as a sub-rusher on third down. Interesting. Jamari Caldwell, good player, number 99, coming back from Oregon. He's big. He might be 340 pounds. They brought in the veteran, Dalvin Tomlinson. He'll be wearing number 94. And they drafted Nick Barrett in the 5th round out of South Carolina. So you can see right now, Coach Elston has a strong nucleus of players and depth to choose from. The one thing that's really cool about the Chargers on third down is they'll use a NASCAR package. I got to go to the Daytona 500. Speed, man. The cars are fast, very well organized. And they'll play 3 of these defensive ends at a time. So don't be surprised if you see the rookie Messidor over the guard with Khalil Mack and Thule together. That could be a lot of fun for the Charger fans on defense. The linebacking core, they're bringing back their top 3 linebackers. And I love Deion Henley, number 0. I'm going to show you one of the things he does particularly well in just a second. But Henley led the team in tackles, 101 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 2 picks. This guy is a hell of a player. They don't ever want to take him off the field. They also re-signed Denzel Perryman. He's wearing number 6 now. Former Raider, he played for me. He's a badass ex-Miami Hurricane. He missed 7 games last year. He was suspended for 2 games, but if Perryman can stay healthy, he can be in the Pro Bowl just like he was for the Raiders. But he has missed at least 4 games the last 4 seasons. He's got to stay on the grass. Fortunately for the Chargers, they still have Troy Dye, number 43. The former Oregon Duck has proved he can play either linebacker position. He's an excellent special teamer. Hell, the guy had 53 tackles. He's the top linebacker backup. And if they play 3 at a time in their base defense, here you have them, Henley, Dye, and Perryman. They also re-signed Delshon Phillips, the former Michigan State Spartan, who's a second-team All-Pro Special Teams player. A lot of very good continuity on defense in the front 7. And where they have really done a great job is drafting and developing players in the secondary, man. But let's be honest, their secondary, it all starts and ends with number 3, Derwin James. You got his jersey, Jake?
Not yet.
Fuck, what are you waiting for? Derwin James is a 5-time Pro Bowler. The team and the scheme puts a lot on Derwin James. They'll play 3 safeties at a time. I call it big nickel, and Derwin James will play in the slot a lot. They'll put him back at safety in their base defense. He'll play in the box as a dime linebacker. Where do you want Derwin James? He's a game-changing wrecking machine. Wherever they need help the most is where you're going to see Derwin James. I mean, where's Waldo? I'm going to show you in a second some of the problems that Derwin James creates. But he'll be in the slot 350 times. He'll be in the box 299 times. He'll be in the post 100 times. He's all over the field. So if you're a quarterback in the pre-snap, you better be looking for number what? Number what? That's right, number 3. Because he really dictates the plan. He had 94 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble last year, and he blitzed or rushed the passer 67 times, man. So 5 or 6 times every week. Whew, look out if you're a running back, man, because he's blitzing. Their corners, Dante Jackson had a very good season. He's the veteran of the group. He wears number 26. I see him at right corner. He tied for the team lead with 4 interceptions. But he knows how to play the game, man. He can read stances. He can read splits. He can read stems. This guy's a hell of a player. He's got great instinct, and he's got really good twitch. He can burst and break with the best of them. The other corner, they play 2 young guys. I mean, the Chargers, this Joe Horowitz, the GM, he drafts these 2 corners in the 5th round in 2024, and they're both really good players. Tarheeb Still, number 29, good player. Hell, a couple years ago against Atlanta, he has about 8 interceptions in 1 game. Cam Hart out of Notre Dame, he wears number 20. They're going to continue to rotate these two guys. They're going to continue to compete, and they'll see all three of these Charger corners in the game in the first half. They like to play them all. They also have a couple of young guys to keep an eye on in the preseason. Nico Reed, he wears number 46. You're going to see a ton of him. They like him. I've heard his name a lot. And this Eric Rogers, he wears number 39 out of Rutgers. These are two undrafted young guys that the Charger secondary is counting on to create some competition and depth. You know, if you play Derwin James down here as the nickel corner, I'm like an owl. Who are the safeties? And I think people got to get more familiarized with the safeties of these Chargers. This Tony Jefferson is one of the all-time mentally tough badasses in pro football. He played a long time with the Ravens. I remember him playing with the 49ers, 34 years old. He comes in there. They have to re-sign him again to a one-year, $2 million deal. Shit, he had 4 interceptions. He tied for the team lead. He's an alpha presence, and what a great role model for these young Charger defenders. They're also going to use Mickens, number 27, second-year man out of Clemson, former 6th-round pick. Mickens had 2 picks last year. He did a hell of a job on the back end. And the other safety is Elijah Molden. Molden wears number 2. He's really coming into his own. He played almost 80% of the plays, over 50 tackles and an interception. He can play in the post. He takes good angles. The guy's a sure tackler. And not only that, they drafted Genesis Smith, man, out of Arizona in the 4th round. I like that name, Genesis Smith. Shit, he had 140 tackles, 18 PBUs, 4 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. He's a freaking ball magnet. So you got the veteran safety Jefferson and the young safeties Mickens, Molden, and Smith, and they're in there with Derwin James. This is a really good defense. And if you're a quarterback, they're ball-hawking badasses. You better be ready. Derwin James creates a lot of problems for offenses. We would sit in there late at night trying to figure out what to do with him. One of the problems is if he's on the open side as a potential blitzer, do you really want your guard and your center to squeeze to the inside linebacker and let your back block Derwin James? Probably not. So you better make a call. We made a fan call to put our tackle and our guard on the end in James and let the back go up inside. So the communication, the recognition is very key with Derwin James. You don't want a back blocking Derwin James on a consistent basis. Otherwise, you're adult. What is adult?
Stupid fellow.
That's right. And speaking of Deion Henley, you know, he does a lot of things that people don't realize. The Chargers, in passing situations, sometimes they'll rush just 3 guys. And they'll have Troy Dye, they'll have Henley playing linebacker in their 32 package. They'll play 2 deep, and they'll play man-to-man underneath with their corner, their nickel, their dime, and their corner. And Troy Dye will cover the running back. Well, they use Henley to spy on these scrambling quarterbacks. So if Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson is at quarterback, they'll play 2 deep with man under, and they'll let Henley take the scrambling quarterback. A couple times last year, Pat Mahomes is running around. Who's got him, Jake?
Henley.
Henley! He'll go sack you, knock your ass off. Henley can do it all. He can play the run, he can play the passing coverage, and he can spy. I love number 0. Well, there you have the Chargers. You can't deny they got a very good head coach and a great quarterback. They got a lot of returning juice on defense. Can they withstand this schedule? That is a very challenging schedule indeed. They're going to really be a factor in the West. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be a wild card. Now let's get into the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, I know it's the off season, but we got to get to the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't even take the time to get a haircut, man. This is the most interesting team in football, if you ask me, because of the dominance that they have had in the NFL. I mean, take a look at this. In the Reed and Mahomes 8-year run, they've been to 6 Super Bowls. They've won 3 of them, 7 division titles, 7 conference championship games, and they lead the NFL with 96 regular season wins. Is that dominating? Well, guess what? Last year they went 6-11, man. I can't imagine Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, Coach Spags on defense going 6-11. In 2024, this team won 15 games and lost 2. They're the first team in NFL history to be below 500 after winning 15 games. That's incredible, isn't it? I know Mahomes got hurt late in the season. They had a ridiculous schedule, if you ask me, in 2025. How would you like to open up the NFL season in Brazil on a Friday night? Does that sound like fun? No. It's a long flight. They played on Thanksgiving. They played on Christmas. Multiple games on Thursday, Monday night, Sunday night. It was a very difficult schedule. You got to obviously account for that. They went 1-5 in the AFC West. So it's going to be interesting to see how the great Andy Reid responds to some offseason adversity. Let's take a look at who's coming and who's going for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a team that's had great continuity, but this year they are retooling, man. They got a lot of new guys, young guys, that are going to have to step up and play for the red and white. Ah! The draft. They had 2 first-round draft choices. They used 3 picks to move up to get Mansour Delane, the corner from LSU. They took him at number 6. He's probably going to come in here and start right away. Then they used the number 1 pick in the latter part of the first round to take Peter Woods, a defensive tackle from Clemson. And in the second round, they took R. Mason Thomas, a very productive edge rusher from Oklahoma. And then in the 5th round, they get Jaden Kennedy, a nickel corner who's pretty damn good out of Oregon. So their first 4 picks were on defense. And then in the 5th round, they took a really good running back. You got to keep an eye on this kid, Emmett Johnson. He took him out of Nebraska. They got Cyrus Allen, an interesting receiver at Cincinnati. And they got Garrett Nussmeier from Gruden's QB class. He's a steal, I'm telling you, in the 7th round. And he's got the perfect guy to watch every day in Pat Mahomes. Nice draft class. Who else is coming? They got a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. Remember, Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator. He left. He went to the Commanders. He went to UCLA. I think he went to the Chicago Bears. Did a hell of a job with the Bears running game. He is the new OC. They brought in Justin Fields, quarterback of the Jets. He's been around, you know. He's been with the Bears, the Steelers. He was at Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State. They traded a 6th-round pick to get Justin Fields. They went out and got Kenneth Walker, badass for the Seattle Seahawks. Did he rip people in the postseason? Yes, he did. He'll be the new feature back in Kansas City. They also signed Amari DeMarcado, running back from the Arizona Cardinals, to compete. On defense, they brought in this big Kyrus Tonga from the New England Patriots, nose tackle. This guy played fullback on offense. He's going to be a good Chief. Alohi Gilman comes in from the Ravens to make the Chiefs better in the back end. He'll be a starting safety. They brought in Kaiir Elam, a former 1st-round pick, corner of the Bills. He's kind of flamed out a little bit. They're trying to rejuvenate this young man. He does have talent. And then, if somebody's coming in the college draft and in free agency, who's leaving, right, Jake? Right. They're losing a lot of guys. Matt Nagy, former offensive coordinator, left, went to the Giants. Gardner Minshew, last year's backup quarterback, he's in Arizona. And Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, their leading 2 rushers, are gone. Pacheco's in Detroit. Kareem Hunt is still available. They let 2 receivers go. Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, they're gone. Brown is in Philly. Smith-Schuster's in Giants. And right tackle Jawan Taylor, who's had a lot of penalties, he is gone. I believe he's playing in Atlanta. And on defense, how about the secondary, man? You talk about retooling. How about completely retooling? Brian Cook is gone at safety. All 3 corners, Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, are now LA Rams, and Joshua Williams is gone. Linebacker, Gruden grinder, Leo Chenal signed with the Commanders. That's a big loss. He did a lot of things for KC, and they let some D linemen go. Charles Omenihu, Mike Dana, 2 guys that came off the edge, and Derek Nnamdi, a big defensive tackle, are gone. So there's a lot of new faces in Kansas City. What are the keys to the rebound for the Kansas City Chiefs? Well, obviously, Pat Mahomes' health. He had that knee injury in Week 15 against the Chargers. I've seen him practicing in these OTAs. Keep an eye on Mahomes in training camp. That's number one. Number two, they've retooled their defense. They got to get back to splash big plays from this defense. They brought in new secondary people, new defensive linemen. It'll be fun to watch. And then on offense, they got a new play caller. They got to become more productive and scary on offense like they were in 2020, 2021. That's the challenge. They got to get back to winning these one-score games. You know, Kansas City in 2024, on that 15-2 team, they were 12-0 in one-score games. Last year, they were 1-9. And if you're a Chief fan, you think back to that 3rd and 14 in Brazil when Chris Jones lost contain and Herbert got that first down at the end of the game. And then you start thinking about that Philadelphia game. It's an all-out blitz. Hurts throws it up, and McDuffie can't cover Devontae Smith. Big play. 3rd and 13, Jaguars late in the game, pass interference against Connor. Terrible loss to the Jags. 3rd and 3 against Buffalo late in the game. Bolton gets picked off, first down Bills. Mahomes doesn't get a chance again. And then you start looking at the Denver game late. I mean, Watson gets beat on a big 3rd down. And against Dallas, hell's bells. Late in the 4th quarter, Trent McDuffie has a PI against CeeDee Lamb. They didn't make the plays to win these one-score games. Hence, there's a little roster turnover, and I like it, man. Get the attention of the Kansas City Chiefs. I used to hate that when they did that. Andy Reid, perhaps the greatest coach in NFL history. I used to work with him. He has unbelievable work ethic and passion for the game. He's 68 years old. I can't wait to see how he approaches adversity. 6 wins, 11 losses, that's foreign territory. He had a lot of time this offseason, which he hasn't had before. He's a deep thinker, a big-time operator, man. I can't wait to see the creativity that he has going into this season. I know he's invigorated, and I can't wait to see the results. Very important that the Chiefs start fast. Take a look at this schedule to start the season. They have Denver at home on Monday Night Football, and then they got the Colts at home. If they could jump out of the gate 2-0, it'd be huge. Then they play at Miami and at Las Vegas. They got a bye week. So if Kansas City can get the mojo going with a quick start, it would sure help them because they have a slate starting November 26th. That's pretty tough, man. They got to play at Buffalo, at the Rams. The Rams have already won the Super Bowl and been fitted for their rings. Can you believe that? And then they play at Cincinnati, 3 straight road games. And then the Patriots, the defending AFC champion, come to Arrowhead. Then the 49ers come to town and at the Chargers. So you're talking about a 14-win team, a 12-win team, 14, 12, and 11. That's a really tough slate. The turnover ratio has always been a winning edge for Andy Reid. Nobody makes a bigger deal out of it than the coach of the Chiefs. Last year, the Chiefs unbelievably only took the ball away 14 times. They only gave it away 15 times, but they were -1. Usually, they're +5, +7, +8. That's an area they're focusing on, trust me. They got a great kicker, Harrison Butker. Everybody's saying, I know he missed 9 kicks. Well, hell, he was 31 for 35 on field goals, plus he missed 5 extra points. That's uncommon for Harrison Butker, but he's got 3 years left on his contract. Have you ever seen this guy kick in cold weather and in big games? Who else would you rather have in those situations? I love his name, too. He'll kick your butt. And they got a pretty good punter. And don't forget the Dave Tobe factor. This is arguably the best special teams coach on the planet. Last thing, you can hear it right now. All the doubters, all the skeptics out there. How healthy is Mahomes? Is he going to be able to run around like he did in the past? Can you hear him talking about who the hell is playing offensive tackle? Who's our receivers, man? Who are we throwing the ball to? What kind of running game are we going to have? Are we going to have one? Is this Kelsey's final year? What songs is Taylor Swift coming out with? And they got a new offensive coordinator. But let me tell you this, they got Brett Veach still as the general manager. And when you put in the Brett Veach factor, don't forget the 22 draft class. Don't forget he went out and got Tyrann Mathieu. He went out and traded for Orlando Brown. He brought in all kind of guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's one more big move coming to a theater near you in Kansas City. Let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about this Kansas City Chief offense. Man, when I was coaching, they were scary. Whew. Right now, they got a new offensive coordinator. Let's isolate Eric Bieniemy's return. One thing I know about Bieniemy, he's a great motivator. He's a great leader. He's a very good communicator. He can control the room, man. Sometimes you need a coach that can walk in and say what needs to be said, Jake. And he says it with a really good flair, if you know what I mean. Instead, Jake, you need to block that guy. It might be, hey, Jake, block that freaking guy. Know what I'm saying, Jake? Yep. It's the delivery, and Bieniemy's great at it. What I love about Bieniemy is he was with the Bears last year. Ask me my favorite thing I watched in the offseason, Jake.
What is it?
The Chicago Bears running game. Manungai, Swift, Darnell Wright at right tackle. Good God. They should put Darnell Wright, I don't know, on alert because he could kill somebody. They come off the ball and maul you. And Bieniemy was coaching the running game. And Manungai and Swift, they ran their asses off. And I really think Bieniemy's going to come in here with this new feature back and revive the Kansas City Chiefs running game. I think there's a big, big role for Eric Bieniemy. The standards on offense at Kansas City are sky high. They've always had very high standards. I got to sit there in training camp and watch them last year. In 2022, number one scoring offense, number one total offense, number one passing offense, but it's been on a decline every year since. Take a look at it. They went from 1st to 15th, 21st last year. That's not up to our standards in Kansas City. In scoring, they were number one in 2022. They went down to 15th, and now 21st last year in scoring in Kansas City. When it comes to total offense, 1st, 9th, 16th, and now 20th. It's sliding. And then in pass offense, 1st, 6th, 14th, and 16th. So obviously, this offense, they aren't recognizing the standards and achieving them. Mahomes' TD passes, think about it. In 2022, he had 41 touchdown passes. That led the NFL. It slipped to 27, then 26, and 22 last year, and I know he missed 3 games. But this offense has been declining from an analytical standpoint. And you need to point that out, right, Jake? Right. What is the run game for the Chiefs? We're going to get into that. And will they throw some play-action passes? They had the fewest amount of yardage last year on play-action passes. And I think that's got a big reason why they don't get some of the chunk plays I've seen them get in recent years. If you study third down, I love to study good third down pass offenses. Over the last 7 seasons, Pat Mahomes was number one. He was 48% conversion on third down. Scrambling, on rhythm throws, you name it. Great ball distribution. But last year, they were down to 22nd in the league, just 36% conversion. So their third down offense is also declining a little bit. Mahomes' numbers, everybody's talking about 62% last year below standards, 22 touches, 11 interceptions, just an 89 passer rating, and he was sacked 6.3% of the time, 49 sacks, and a lot of pressure. Got to get better. One of the things I've observed is the supporting cast for Kansas City needs to be looked at carefully. Do you know Kansas City has not had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2017? That's Kareem Hunt's rookie year. I mean, that's saying something. They haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Tyreek Hill left in 2021. I mean, look at this. 2022, leading receiver was Juju Smith-Schuster. 2023, Rashee Rice. 2024, Xavier Worthy. 2025, Hollywood Brown. He only had 587 yards. They haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver or a 1,000-yard back in some time. And I think that crowd of skill players, we got to find somebody that can be great, man, and step up and make big plays. Everybody's saying Mahomes is scrambling, running around too much. Last year, he had a career high 422 rushing yards, man, with 5 TDs. He missed 3 games, and he still had a career high of rushing yards. He scrambled 53 times. That means he carried the ball way too much. Only Drake May had more scrambles. And when you look at the offensive line, there was way too much pressure on Pat Mahomes last year. 38% completion percentage when he was under pressure. Only Michael Penix had a lower completion percentage at 37%. So Mahomes is getting sacked, he's getting hit, and he's scrambling too much. Now let's really focus on the run game. We know Bieniemy's coming back. We know he's coming in here from Chicago, who ran the ball extremely well. But this running game for Kansas City, you know, last year they only had 3 runs of 20 yards or more. 3. And one of them was a reverse by Worthy. And one of them was a scramble by Mahomes. They had 1 running play that gained over 20 yards. That's not acceptable. So they went out and they got Kenneth Walker from the Seattle Seahawks. Walker by himself had 10 rushes of over 20 yards as a Seahawk, man. And when you watch Walker, 317 yards in the playoffs with 4 touchdowns, you're getting a guy in his prime that can really cut and slice defenses. And I'm hoping Mahomes gets under the center, they put Walker back in the dot and let him run some of these zone plays that he carved people up with as a Seahawk. The Chiefs lost their 2 leading rushers last year. Kareem Hunt, 611 yards, is gone. We talked about Pacheco. He had 462. He's in Detroit. And hell, Mahomes had 422 himself. So obviously, Kenneth Walker is going to be the feature back. Fantasy football fans, you might want to look into him. You know what I'd like to see the Chiefs do, Jake? I'd like to see them get in a game, get under the center, and hand the ball off 3 straight plays and make us a first down. Pound people behind Creed Humphreys and Trey Smith. They have the people to do it, man. But last year, they became one-dimensional. They had some soft boxes, playing a lot of coverage. They put these special pass rushers out there. I would like to see Kansas City get big. Even put in that Kyrus Tonga, that 330-pound fullback, and let him go after people. But they got to get the running game going. The Andy Reid offense has always been big on yards after the catch. If you're a young receiver in your practices, catch the ball, put it away, and finish your runs, man. Andy Reid, 2020, 21, 22, 23, they were number 1 in the NFL with yards after the catch. The last 2 seasons, they've been number 3. A high percentage of this pass offense comes from run after the catch. So you got to work on it. Knock on a grease board if you're with me. Will the Chiefs add a receiver? I don't know. They haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Tyreek Hill was a Chief in 2021. Guess who's available, Clay? Who? Tyreek Hill, man. He's 32 years old. There's a lot of rumors out there. Man, I would love to see this kid come back as a Kansas City Chief and finish with authority. But that's just a rumor. The other guys out there, Stephon Diggs had over 1,000 yards with the Patriots. I mean, Keenan Allen's out there, the former Charger, number 1 all-time leading receiver. Deebo Samuel. Will Brett Veach and Andy Reid sign another receiver before the season starts? Maybe DeAndre Hopkins comes back, who knows? And then there's a lot of drama with Travis Kelce on offense. I kind of see Kelce not as a tight end. I see him more of a slot receiver role. This guy still, you can say whatever you want. He used to kill me, man. I still have scars to prove it. But Kelce last year, he had over 850 yards, man, 76 catches. That was 3rd in the NFL for yards by a tight end. You know, he's over 13,000 yards. There's only 3 tight ends in NFL history with over 13,000 yards receiving. Tony Gonzalez, another Chief, and Jason Witten, my man. I mean, this guy's got 1,080 catches. He's a Hall of Famer. Is this his last season? It'll be interesting to watch this finale. But it's also going to be interesting to see what Andy Reid does with Kelce. Another big issue outside the running game and who these receivers are is this offensive line. I mean, offensive tackle has been an issue for the Chiefs. Whether they like it or not, they used 4 different left tackles last year. and they use 3 different right tackles. Hell's bells. They got to get some consistency and some reliability out of the offensive tackle position. You know, last year the Chiefs gave up 47 sacks. That's the most sacks they've given up since 2014. But ask me what was more disappointing than that, Jake.
What?
35 holding calls. Let me tell you something, man. That really pisses a coach off. And some of them were bogus calls. These refs aren't perfect, as you know, but 35 holding calls and 47 sacks, man, you're behind in the down and distance a lot. Let's take a look at this offensive line. The left tackle is going to be Josh Simmons, former first-round pick out of Ohio State. He's got all the skill and all the confidence you need to do it. But remember, he missed his whole final season at Ohio State, and he only played 8 games last year, and he had 5 holding calls himself. So he's got to be more reliable. He left the team for personal reasons. They need Simmons to become great at left tackle and be reliable. They don't really have any proven backups, so Simmons is a critical piece for the Chiefs offense. Jawan Taylor's gone, so the right tackle's going to be Jalen Moore, the ex-San Francisco 49er. Now that he knows he's the opening day starter, I expect him to step up and have his best season ever. They got a great line coach here in Andy Heck. The right guard is a Pro Bowler, Trey Smith, former Tennessee Volunteer. He missed 5 games last year. He had a back injury. We talked to Smith at the Super Bowl. God, I wish we drafted him.
We've had a really well-established system of success, a standard that we've had, and obviously we fell short the past couple of years. And you know, I think the exciting part to me is like, man, we can do something about it, man. We can change it. We can turn this shit around. And for me, I think that's like the best part about it is like as a competitor, it's like, man, this offseason, what can I do better? How can I be healthier? How can I show up every game and be the best version of myself? So this organization, this team can be the best they can be. You know what I mean? It's like, you get a little bit of adversity, man, like it exposes who you are, right? And for me, it's just like I'm excited about the opportunity to go back on that field. I feel like I have something to prove.
And the center is an all-time badass, Creed Humphrey. We got to spend some time with him as well. All he does is go to the Pro Bowl 4 straight years, and he's all pro. And if you like Pro Football Focus, who do you think the #1 ranked center is? You're damn right. And he never misses a game.
What's that like being in a state of adversity, urgency, as opposed to how it has been?
Yeah, you know, I mean, Coach Reed says it all the time. There's so much parity in this league. You know, the difference between winning and losing a game is razor thin. So, I mean, you look at the year before, we were undefeated in those 1-score games. Then this year, we were not doing near as good in them. So, for us, it's just about, you know, fixing those little details, being able to get everybody to be detail-oriented and making sure they're coming in with the right attitude every single day, attacking the meeting rooms, walkthroughs, practices, all those things, just doing it the right way every single day.
The left guard was a very positive surprise last year, Kingsley Suamataya. He moved from left tackle to left guard and played pretty damn good. So they have the nucleus of being a great offensive line, but the tackle play has got to pick up. Pat Mahomes, his health, his return to full strength is absolutely critical for the Chiefs to be great again. You know, Mahomes, he topped 35,000 yards passing last year in just 123 games. No one has done it faster than that. 285.2 yards a game. That's the best all time. And Mahomes scrambling, we talked about it. Maybe he did it too much. But if you remember last year, the big plays the Chiefs got, how about the 52-yard PI against the Giants? It was an unbelievable scramble throw. The 49-yard pass against the Chargers to Marquise Brown. Did you see Khalil Mack beating down on him? Doesn't matter. I mean, the 42-yard shot to Rashee Rice against the Colts, good God. And that 37-yard touchdown pass to Kelsey against the Chargers. This guy Mahomes, he gets out of trouble, and he makes plays when there ain't shit there. Damn Mahomes. But who's the backup? Let's just say for the hell of it, Mahomes might need a couple extra weeks to get ready. Remember this name, Justin Fields. They gave up a 6th-round pick to the Jets. And Justin Fields, let's say Mahomes is ready. I expect Andy Reid to have some real creative packages, all you defensive coordinators. 3rd down, short yardage, 4-minute, tight red zone. Justin Fields at quarterback. He can run all that tricky gadget stuff. You know that. And plus, this Kairis Tonga, he played 14 snaps of fullback last year for the Patriots. And if you've studied Andy Reid over the years, they used to have this guy, Don Terry Poe. I think he wore number 92, just like Tonga. You're going to see him at fullback. You're going to see my man, Justin Fields, doing all kind of stuff. So look for some creative packages. And Garrett Nussmeier, let me tell you now, I know he didn't have a great year at LSU in 2025, but he was hurt. If you go back and watch this guy in 2024, he's pretty good. The running back will be Kenneth Walker. He's a hell of a back. We all know him from Seattle, former Michigan State Spartan. And they have a couple other backs I think that are quite interesting. I like Rashard Smith. He's a former wide receiver / running back. He got a lot of playing time as a rookie. He is fast, man, and he can do a lot of different things out of the backfield. And this Emmett Johnson, if you're interested in preseason football, take a good look at the Chiefs, because I really like Nussmeier at quarterback, and I really like this 5th-round pick out of Nebraska, Emmett Johnson. All right, at wide receiver, let's focus on this position. Who's it going to be that steps up with the great Pat Mahomes? We know Xavier Worthy led the team in receiving a couple years ago, but he hasn't really become the Deshaun Jackson jet that we thought he was going to be. Just 1 touchdown last year. He only had 42 catches. We're waiting for Worthy to start pumping out hits. Know what I mean? And Rashee Rice, what's the deal here? I mean, he's going into a contract season. Rice, he's been in jail for 30 days. He's had knee surgeries. He's only played 12 of the last 37 games. The talent is undeniable, but the reliability is a big question. Is he going to play? Is he suspended? How long is he suspended? Will he come back in shape? What the hell's going on? They got to get that solved. And then Tyquan Thornton, the ex-New England Patriot, is the deep threat, believe it or not, of the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 19 catches, 436 yards. The average throw to Thornton was like 26.3 yards in the air. That's like 7 yards more than anybody else in the NFL. But can he be an every down go-to receiver in this offense? I think the slot receiver for the Chiefs is really going to be Travis Kelce. Let's be honest. They could easily morph into a 12 personnel team, 1 back, 2 tight ends, and just play 2 receivers at a time until Tyreek Hill shows up. You know what I mean? They do have a couple young guys that are worth keeping an eye on. They drafted Jalen Royals last year. He only had 2 catches for 4 yards. And they also drafted Cyrus Allen in the 5th round out of Cincinnati. So those are 2 more young guys to keep an eye on when Nussmeier and Emmett Johnson are playing. I would do that if I was a Chief fan. And then there's always Nico Ramahio, my good friend from Fresno. He's their punt returner. He wears number 81. I think he might sneak into the lineup a little bit. He is a tough, hard-nosed guy. He's very good after the catch. But there's a lot of competition and unknown at wide receiver. There's a new feature back. And at tight end, we've already talked about Kelce. They need Noah Gray to really step up. He had a concussion late last year. His numbers were down, just 21 catches for 178 yards. But I love Noah Gray. He's my kind of tight end. He can block in the core. He can detach. He can catch. He's a good player. And where is Jared Wiley, Clay? 4th round pick a couple years ago. He spent 2 years battling injuries. They got to get Wiley going. If you're listening to me, Jared, come on, man. But offensively, new offensive coordinator, a lot of new faces, a lot of question marks. It'll be interesting to follow in August. Okay, on defense now, the Kansas City Chiefs. I love talking about the Chiefs. I get sweating, man, because I used to spend a lot of time in a dark room. But Steve Spagnuolo, one of the great defensive coaches alive, still runs the show here. And he's got an assortment of really good assistant coaches helping him. They were good last year. 6th in scoring, 10th in total, 9th against the run, 12th against the pass. They were good. But there's a big difference between good and great. And Spagnuolo and the Chiefs, the standard is great. Yes? Yes. They're on a youth movement. Their first 4 draft choices were all on defense. 2 firsts, a second, and these young guys are expected to come in and play. And they got 4 second-year players on defense they're counting on. And I used to tell our team, second-year players, okay, be on alert. I expect you guys to show the most improvement. You've been through the drill now. You know the system. You know the routine. Show us what you got. And I'm talking about Norman Lott, a defensive tackle they took out of Tennessee in the 2nd round. He got hurt. He missed a lot of the season. And then they got Ashton Gelati out of Louisville in the 3rd round. He did some good things as a rookie. Come on, man. Let's see what you got in your 2nd year. Noel Williams, corner from Cal. I like this guy. But there's a big difference between good and great, Noel. Let's go. And then they also took this Jeffrey Bassa guy in the 5th round, a linebacker from Oregon. I'm still waiting to see him make his presence felt. So rookies, second-year players on defense, a big part of Coach Spagnuolo's rise to greatness. One of the things that's noticeable is the decline in sack production. The pass rush has not been what it has been in recent years. In 2022 and 2023, 55 sacks, 57 sacks. They were 2nd in the NFL in sacks. And then in 2024, they slipped to 39. And then last year, they were 22nd in the NFL with just 35 sacks. Why do you think they went out and drafted a kid from Oklahoma, another guy from Clemson? They got to rev up the rush. You know, when you get to 3rd down against a great defense on the road in the NFL, especially against the Spagnuolo coach teams, you get nervous. And 3rd down defense has always been a very important stat in Kansas City's history. Last year, they gave up 43.6% first downs. That was 29th in the league. That really pisses them off, let me tell you. They take a lot of pride in getting off the field and getting Mahomes back out there with his offense. That has to improve. The most surprising thing, when you look at this retooled defense, is they are really doing the whole secondary over. And the interesting thing, if you study general managers, I love doing that. Brett Veach, he's great, but he has never signed a corner to his 2nd contract. That's just been his history. He didn't do it with Marcus Peters. He didn't do it with Ward. He didn't do it with L'Jarius Sneed. And he didn't do it with Trent McDuffie or Jalen Watson. So he hasn't really given a lot of corners that 2nd contract. That must be part of his philosophy. The last corner to get a 2nd contract was Eric Berry. But they have totally retooled the secondary. We'll get into that in just a second. What I love about the Chiefs secondary, ask me, Jake, they lead the league in bump and run, man. Al Davis, my old boss with the Raiders, he loved press coverage. And the Chiefs, man, they're almost 50% press coverage on the outside. I freaking love that. No bubble screens, none of this easy crap. I love the way they play aggressive on the outside. Steve Spagnuolo and his defensive staff, they blitzed 34% of the time last year. That was the 3rd highest total. And their blitzes, man, they're good. They have a lot of volume. They have a 3-down package, a 4-down package. They have a jam package. They got AA, corner blitzes. They got it all. And they have some really good, I call them designer blitzes, which means they show up on game day with something you have never seen. They design it just for you, Clay. Kapow! They got some good stuff, man. They play muddy coverages. Cover 0 over here, they'll cloud over here. They do a lot of different cool stuff. And they expect their men to win in one-on-one situations. I mean, if you're a linebacker and you're blitzing against this back, beat him. If you're one-on-one against that tackle, kick his ass. And if you don't win your one-on-ones, there's going to be some change, let me tell you. Let's take a look at this defensive line. They're led by the great Chris Jones. And I know his sack numbers are down. He's got 87.5 career sacks. He's been to 7 straight Pro Bowls. He played 73% of the time last year, and he played 83% of the time the year before that. But when you study get-offs, and I'm talking about getting off on the ball, that's the key to being a great defensive pass rusher. Chris Jones has the fastest get-off for a defensive tackle that has over 200 rushes. 0.86, 0.82. This guy's getting off the rock still at a high level. He's got to get some help around him. I think that's the key, but Chris Jones is still a badass number 95. George Karlaftis, number 56. He battled a thumb injury last year. He had a career pressure rate of 13.1%. He had 58 pressures, man. He had 6 sacks. If Karlaftis is out there, you just got to finish. You got to clean up some of this messes back there. I think he left at least a half a dozen sacks out there last year. But a very good, relentless player. Karlaftis and Jones. Ask me who else they got up front, Jake. Ooh. I'm going to get into that. They brought in Kairos Tonga. He's going to wear number 92. He is going to be a run-stuffing, really good Kansas City Chief. He played 14 games for the Patriots. He had 8 starts. He had a career-high 337 defensive snaps. He had 14 pressures. He's a good run defender. And over here on the other edge, the other defensive end position, I don't know who it's going to be. I keep waiting for number 91, former first-round pick, Felix Anyudike Uzama. Come on, man. We're waiting on you. Ashton Gelati, second-year player, played 47% of the plays last year. He had 1.5 sacks. He had 22 pressures and a pick. Who's it going to be? The guy I can't wait to see is R. Mason Thomas. He's going to wear number 34, second-round pick out of Oklahoma, rookie. You talk about a factor grade. In 23 games at Oklahoma, this cat had 15.5 sacks, 22 tackles for loss. They got some young guys over here opposite Karlaftis that got talent. They got to show up and play big for Kansas City. Other guys to look for is their other first-round defensive tackle, number 99, Peter Woods. You know, Woods was polarizing to some of the draft gurus because, you know, he's not the biggest guy. He's only 6'2", 298. But he sat in here at the FFCA with us. He is a great guy. He really knows the game. But you know what? He only had 5 sacks in his 2 years at Clemson. So when he hooks up with Joe Cullen, the D-line coach of the Chiefs, I think they might have something special here. Keep an eye on Peter Woods. And number 55, Omar Norman Lott. He's another high draft choice. Second-round pick 2 years ago. They need Norman Lott and Woods to go to Lowe's department store and buy a case of whoop-ass and show up and use it. The linebacking core, they return their top 2 players. Number 32, Nick Bolton. He led the team in tackles. Hell, he had 154 tackles. He did uncharacteristically miss a lot of tackles he normally makes. I think Bolton can play better than he did last year. And I think Drew Tranquill's also a very good linebacker. Both can play on every down. Tranquill had 103 tackles last year. You know, since they signed this cat, Drew Tranquill from the Chargers, 275 tackles, 21 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks. These guys are both productive veteran linebackers in the Steve Spagnuolo defense. But I can't wait to see some of these young guys. One of these young guys I like, his name is Cooper McDonald. I think he wears number 59. He comes out of TCU. Who leads the Chiefs in special teams tackles? Cooper McDonald. Who started the last game of the year? I watched it. You know, it was one of those meaningless games. I watched it anyways because I wanted to see Cooper McDonald. He might work himself into the third linebacker spot. They still have Jack Cochran, number 43, and they have their second-year linebacker, Jeffrey Bassa, a 5th-round pick out of Oregon. Keep an eye on these young guys, okay, during the preseason. If Bolton and Tranquill don't play, they lost Leo Chenal. Are you guys with me? Yep. So who's the third linebacker? Cooper McDonald, Jeffrey Bassa, or Jack Cochran? Good players, but they got to earn that third spot. And quickly, let's talk about this retooled secondary of the Kansas City Chiefs. Trent McDuffie's gone. Jalen Watson's gone. I mean, Cook is gone. These guys are all in other places. Look for Noel Williams, number 20. He had 37 tackles, 7 PBUs last year. He played 432 snaps. He's going to be a big-time Kansas City Chief, trust me. This cat had a 76.6 QBR against them last year. He played as good as any corner on the Chiefs a year ago. Number 20, second-year man out of Cal. The other corner is going to be the rookie. I love saying this name. Monsieur Delane. They gave up the 9th pick, the 74th pick, the 148th pick to go get this cat. He's going to walk in and start as a rookie. Played at Virginia Tech, played at LSU. He was a high school wrestler. He's a corner that plays press coverage in college with ball production. People feared him in NCAA football. He only had 2 picks, 7 or 8 PBUs, but no one attacked the guy. He did have 2 interceptions, 13 PBUs, but they didn't really go at him very much. You know what I love about him? He had 45 tackles. He can run 4.38, and he's got length. Length. Measure your tip to tip, measure yourself from head to toe, and if your length is wider than your height, you got length. Know what I mean? I think those could be the starting 2 corners. But when you watch Steve Spagnuolo, the nickel corner, they got a lot of guys that have to go in here. Last year, Chamari Connor, a safety man, played in the slot quite a bit because they played 3 safeties at a time, big nickel. But they got this guy, Kader Kuhu, from the Miami Dolphins. I love this guy. He missed the whole season last year. He was hurt. But Kuhu, he plays at Texas A&M Commerce. He's undrafted. He comes down here to South Florida. He starts 38 freaking games. He makes 180 tackles. He's a physical, tough-ass guy. Perfect nickel. He's experienced, and he's a good player. So now you got Connor Kuhu, and they got their 5th-round draft choice, rookie Jaden Kennedy out of Oregon. When you watch Oregon play last year, the kid has 2 interceptions, 8 passes broken up. He can play in the box like a linebacker. So they got those 3 guys, and they got Chris Roland Wallace, number 30. They got 4 guys that can play in the slot. I had a hard time getting one guy ready to play in there. They got a lot of guys, man. And at safety, we already talked about Connor. Connor is going to play safety in their base defense. He'll play big nickel in their sub package. Connor played more snaps than any Kansas City Chief last year on defense, 965 snaps. He does get criticized for coverage sometimes. Connor had a PI against Jacksonville late. Connor got beat. He is vulnerable in coverage, perhaps. That's why they use a more specialized cover man this season. That'll be something to keep an eye on. They also have Jaden Hicks, number 21, competing with Connor. Hicks, we're all kind of waiting for him as well to explode onto the scene with more memorable plays. The opposite safety is a huge addition for the Chiefs. They get Alohi Gilman, 3 years, $25 million in free agency. Gilman was a good Charger. He was a good Raven. He's going to be a huge addition to this Chiefs secondary. They lost Reed. They lost Cook. And they need Gilman to come in here and play his ass off. Gilman played with Tranquil at Notre Dame. This guy's productive. 320 tackles, 27 PBUs, 5 picks, 5 forced fumbles, and 6 fumble recoveries. I like this cat, man, Alohi Gilman. But when you look at the Chiefs on defense, there's a lot of youth. And a preseason is going to be really important to see how far this youth can come, because they got to come out of the gate and get going fast, because they got a tough schedule after November 26th. I will never doubt Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. This is a playoff team if Mahomes is healthy. The youth is going to have to come a long way. But I think 3 teams in the AFC West make the playoffs. That's just me. Now let's do one more team in the AFC West. How about the Raiders? Okay, the Las Vegas Raiders. God, I love the Raiders. Anyways, the Raiders, they got work to do. We all know that. They were 3-14 last year, 1-5 in the AFC West. They play their games in the beautiful Allegiant Stadium, right on the Strip in Vegas, man. Problem is, it's not really a home game advantage, because these other teams are buying all of our tickets. They're really pissing me off. I mean, I see more Steeler fans than Raider fans. Then I see more Bronco fans than Raider fans. Quit selling your tickets. But the Raiders have a new head coach, Clint Kubiak. Kubiak comes to the Raiders from the Seattle Seahawks, where he was the offensive coordinator. We'll get into Kubiak in just a minute. Great offensive coach. They also are led by John Spytek, the general manager who comes from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is Spytek's second season in charge of the Silver and Black. And they got a guy named Tom Brady helping. Can you imagine having Tom Brady walking around your facility? Whew, that'd be nice. The Raiders are 7-27 in the last 2 seasons, and GM John Spytek, he has given the Raiders a facelift, man. They're going to have a brand new look to them. A lot of coming and going here with this franchise. They hit the reset button. Head coach Clint Kubiak comes in with 2 new coordinators, Andrew Janocko and Rob Leonard, former defensive line coach, has been appointed as the defensive coordinator. All 3 of these coaches are under 40 years old. So there's a youth movement in Vegas. I kind of like that. Kirk Cousins comes in from Atlanta at quarterback. They brought in some off-the-radar wide receivers. Jalen Naylor from the Minnesota Vikings. Derek Young, a receiver from the Seattle Seahawks. They brought in fullback Connor Hayward from the Steelers. And they brought in a big-time center, Tyler Linderbaum. Gave him a lot of money to be in the pivot for the Silver and Black. He comes in from the Baltimore Ravens. They also signed Spencer Burford, former starting guard with the 49ers. And on defense, man, they totally made over their linebacking core. Nakobe Dean comes in from Philadelphia. Quay Walker comes in from the Green Bay Packers. They bring in Benito Jones, a nose tackle from the Miami Dolphins, and Teron Johnson, 30-year-old nickel cornerback of the Buffalo Bills. A lot of newcomers. They've added a lot of veteran coaches and veteran players, but the Raiders also are bringing in an interesting draft class, led by Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner out of Indiana, #1 overall pick. He will be the quarterback of the future for the Silver and Black. At the top of the second round, they take Traden Stukes. He's a safety, nickel, corner, hybrid guy at Arizona, interesting player. Third round, they take Kieron Crawford, edge rusher. Played at Arkansas State, transferred to Auburn. They need depth off the edge. They also drafted in the third round Trey Zune. I like that name, from Texas A&M. He played left tackle. He played center. I think he's going to start his career with the Raiders at guard. And then in the fourth round, they trade up to get Jermad McCoy out of Tennessee, the Volunteers. Here's a corner a lot of people thought was going to go very high. He had that injury, didn't play in the 2025 season, but the Raiders saw that 4.38 he ran at his pro timing date. They liked that pick right there at the top of the fourth. They also got Mike Washington, 1,000-yard back at Arkansas last year. I like Washington because I like big backs, man. 6'2", 223. This guy can run the rock. In the fifth round, they get another safety from Arizona. They get Traden Stukes' teammate, Dalton Johnson, another safety from Arizona. I don't remember drafting 2 guys from the same team in the same year very often, although I think we did it at Clemson. I think we drafted every player on the Clemson Tigers one year just to let Clemson people know we love them. They also got Hezekiah Massis, a corner at California. They drafted Nnamdi Asomugha a few years ago out of Cal. That turned out pretty good. And in the sixth round, they got Malik Benson, interesting wide receiver, I'm told, at Oregon. And in the seventh round, they got Brandon Cleveland, defensive tackle out of NC State. But the key to the draft is Mendoza. And some of these young defensive backs, they're bringing in 4 of them to get this secondary right. But when somebody's coming in, somebody's leaving the house. You got to make room, you know. Head coach Pete Carroll, 1 year and no longer the head coach. Kind of a surprise. Chip Kelly, I think he got a $6 million a year contract to be the offensive coordinator. He didn't last the season. And on defense, their coordinator, Patrick Graham, he is also gone. He's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So new coaches, and that is a big deal because they've had a lot of turnover in Vegas. At quarterback, they lost Geno Smith. They let 2 running backs go. Draft choice, Zamir White, former Dolphin, Raheem Mostert, out of town. And they also let go Stone Forsythe, backup left tackle who struggled last year, starting offensive guard Dylan Parham, center Alex Kappa. A lot of Raiders have left town. And on defense, how about your whole linebacker core? Leading tackler Devin White, Landon Roberts is gone. Jamal Adams gone. And they also lost some men in their secondary. Darnay Holmes, Lonnie Johnson. They even let their place kicker, Daniel Carlson, go. That kind of surprised me. You know, the Raiders haven't won a playoff game since 2002, but to put that in perspective, Fernando Mendoza was born in 2003. It's been a long time. Come on, Raiders! They haven't had a lot of continuity. We know they've had a lot of change at head coach. I think they've had 5 head coaches since Chucky was run out of town. I don't know. But they've had no continuity at head coach or quarterback. It'll be the 5th straight season they got a new opening day starter. They had Derek Carr, then they go to Jimmy Garoppolo, then it's Gardner Minshew, then it's Geno Smith, now it's going to be Kirk Cousins or Fernando Mendoza. Too much change has really been a factor in the Raiders' demise, I think, in the last several seasons. Enter Clint Kubiak, who could solve a lot of problems. Not only do they get a young, up-and-coming head coach, they get a guy that can really call plays and coach quarterbacks and run the offense. The guy's outstanding. Remember, the Raiders' offense last year was a disaster. I mean, what do you say when you're like disappointed, Jake? What do you say, Clay? What do you say when you're last in points per game, 14.1? What do you say when you're last in 245 yards per game? What about last in rushing, 77 yards a game? What about last with 64 sacks allowed? What about 31st in yards per drive? 31st in time of possession per drive, and 31st in drives that end in a score. Not good. So they need Kubiak to come in here, put his playbook in, and everybody buys into it, and you'll see some improving, I promise you that. One thing that's alarming to me looking at the Raiders' schedule, this is the 7th most difficult schedule in pro football. I mean, they got to play some tough games, man. They got no primetime games. I say we'll fix that. We'll flex that, won't we, NBC? We'll flex that after about 7 or 8 of these quality Raider games, you'll see. But no primetime games on the schedule, and I'm sure Coach Kubiak is going to use that as motivation. Okay, we'll show all these networks. The other thing is they got to play Seattle. The Rams, who have already won the Super Bowl and fitted for their rings, they got to play the Bills. They play the Seahawks, Rams, and Bills. At least they play them all at home. That could be an advantage if we don't sell our season freaking tickets to these guys. Last but not least, the turnover ratio's got to improve for the Raiders. They only took the ball away 16 times last year, and they gave it away 23 times. That was a -7. They were 27th in the league in the turnover ratio. What's that sound again? Yeah, it's got to be resolved. Special teams, they have a great punter. I'm not talking good, I'm talking great. A.J. Cole, been to the Pro Bowl, should go again. But they have a new kicker. Already talked about Daniel Carlson. He's out of town. They signed Matt Gay. Matt Gay is on his 5th team. He kicked for the world champion Rams. He was on 2 different teams last year, Washington, San Francisco, 84% kicker. He needs to win this job, and he will be battled by the former Hawaii Rainbow. Listen to this. Kansei Matsuzawa. This guy was 27 out of 29 on field goals, 40 for 40 on PATs. He was a Lou Groza finalist. There's going to be a battle at the place kicking position. Let's get into the offense. Let's go Raiders. Okay, this Raider offense, we've already talked about the negative statistics. 32nd in scoring, 32nd in total, 32nd in rushing, and 28th in passing. That's why Clint Kubiak is here. And not only is Kubiak here, he brought in a couple great offensive coaches that he's worked with in the past that are going to help him implement this system. I remember when I went to the Raiders, hell, you have to hire a bunch of guys you haven't really worked with, and you had to do a lot of interviewing, and that's tough sometimes. But he's bringing in Janoko as his offensive coordinator, who was with them in New Orleans. He's been with them in Seattle. And most importantly, he gets Rick Dennison, a great offensive line coach who has a lot of ties to Coach Kubiak and Kubiak's dad, Gary Kubiak, over 30 years of work in the National Football League. These are 2 great hires coming in with Clint Kubiak to fix this offense. You're going to see a lot of personnel groupings with the Raiders with Clint Kubiak in town. That's why I love watching his tape. They're going to use 12 personnel, 1 back and 2 tight ends. They'll use 21 personnel with Connor Hayward at fullback. They'll get into some 2-back sets for Ashton Jeanty, their running back. They'll get into 2 tight ends and 2 backs. We call it 22. They'll also use 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. You'll see it all with Clint Kubiak based on the opponent they play. Let's give a real quick snapshot of who Clint Kubiak is in the National Football League. In his first season in Seattle, yeah, they win the Super Bowl. They're 3rd in points, 8th in yards, 10th in rushing yardage, and 8th in passing. I call it balance. The ball distribution is excellent. Running backs, tight ends, wideouts, they all catch passes. Sam Darnold, under Kubiak's guidance, he went to the Pro Bowl, threw for 4,000 yards. He threw 25 touchdowns and 14 interceptions and played great in the postseason. Before he was with Seattle, Clint Kubiak was with former Raider Derek Carr in New Orleans. And when Carr was healthy, he had this Saint offense humming, man. And before New Orleans, he was with the Minnesota Vikings from 2021 to 2023. 2 years at the quarterback coach position, 1 year as the offensive coordinator, and he coached a guy named Kirk Cousins for 3 years. Cousins threw for 12,000 yards, went to the Pro Bowl, and he's reunited with Cousins in Vegas. Let's talk about the quarterback position of the Raiders. I've already talked about all the change. 5 different quarterbacks. You either get better or worse in this business. I think the Raiders got clearly better. They get Kirk Cousins, and everybody's like, Cousins, he's been around in Washington, he's been around in Minnesota, Atlanta, he's been around. Yeah, he's a hell of a player. The perfect mentor for Fernando Mendoza. 3 years of experience in the Kubiak system. Great years in the Kubiak system. And when you look at Cousins, you're getting a leader, you're getting a guy that the coach trusts, he knows he can win with Cousins, and he's comfortable with Cousins, got a lot of confidence in him. But Cousins comes in as one of the few guys in the NFL that has had multiple seasons with over 4,000 yards passing, over 25 touchdowns, and under 15 interceptions. He's done that 7 times. Only 2 guys have done it more times. Tom Brady, 13, and Aaron Rodgers, 10. I mean, when you look at Cousins, man, he's thrown for 49,700 yards, 19th all time. Kirk Cousins has 296 touchdown passes, 15th all time. And when you look at completion percentage, 66.7%, that is 7th all time. His passer rating is 96.8 all time. That puts him at 12th. And game-winning drives, he has 33. You like that? Kirk Cousins has done a lot of good shit, man, in the NFL. And he's here to mentor the chosen one, Fernando Mendoza. Talk about talent and work ethic. It's that combination, I think, that Mark Davis, Spytek, and Tom Brady saw in this kid. Remember, they were at the national championship game, snooping around down there in pregame warm-up. They saw everything. How many guys do you know that win the national championship, win the Heisman, and become the number 1 overall pick in the NFL? I can only count 3 guys. I can count Cam Newton, I can count Joe Burrow, and Fernando Mendoza. I mean, Mendoza, 2025, 16-0, 72% complete, 41 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Good God. I mean, the guy ran for 276 yards and 6 more touchdowns. So he's big, he's smart, he's competitive, and he is a dual threat. Very, very good player. The only thing with Mendoza is I only saw him under the center 5 times in 2 years at California and his season at Indiana. He's been in the gun a lot, obviously, except for those 5 plays. But Clint Kubiak in Seattle last year was under the center 53% of the time. So that'll be a little bit of a transition for Mendoza, getting the footwork and the rhythm, kind of like Caleb Williams had to do in his first year under Ben Johnson. It can be done and will be done, but it'll take a little time to get him comfortable. You know, there is pressure in this business, and I'm sure Fernando will feel the pressure. He's going to be hearing all the people chirping about the Raiders, The last first-round pick they took at quarterback was Jamarcus Russell. The one before that was Todd Marinovich. The one before that was Mark Wilson. This guy's different, man. This guy's different. You will see, Raider Nation. Mendoza's the real deal. Prove that to me, will you, Fernando? But I think one of the most interesting things about the quarterback position in Vegas is what in the hell happens to Aiden O'Connell, man? I love Aiden O'Connell. When Josh McDaniels was in Vegas, I saw O'Connell have some really good games. He's got prototype size, he's tough as hell, and he's a pinpoint passer. So right now the Raiders have 3 quarterbacks. I'm sure you're going to see a ton of Mendoza and O'Connell in the preseason. Keep an eye on what happens with O'Connell before this training camp is over. He's a good enough player to play in this league. We all know Kubiak's going to have a balanced offense and great ball distribution. What Kubiak does that I like is just what his dad did in Denver. He'll run the ball until you stop it. And when you stop the run, he is going to throw some bootlegs and play action passes at you that are downright nasty. A lot of plays that start off looking the same that are different. They're going to create a lot of conflict in your linebackers. And if you have a safety that gets nose trouble, good luck. They run this outside zone. The imaginary aiming point is the crack of the butt of the tight end. I mean, they run the outside zone. They'll press it and take it. They'll bounce it outside. They'll cut it back. They've made a living with the outside zone. The Seahawks were 10th in the NFL last year in rushing, 125 yards a game. Put this in perspective. With the same backs and pretty much the same offensive line, the year before, Seattle was 28th in the NFL with 95 yards rushing a game. Kubiak and Dennison, they know how to coach the running game. It's going to work. The Raiders are going to be much improved running the football. And when they start running it, just as I said earlier, I think the best thing the Kubiaks have always done is set up these play-action passes and bootlegs. Last year in Seattle, 27% of their passes were play-action passes, and they had 7.6 yards per pass. That's where they get the chunk yardage. The only team that averaged more yardage per pass last year was the Patriots at 7.7. The Raiders last year, not a good play-action passing team. They averaged just 4.9 yards per pass. That was one of the worst in the league. So they're going to get better at running and play-action passing. That's a big reason why Clint Kubiak and Coach Dennison are wearing the silver and black. Real quick, let's get into the running game. Last year, they drafted Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State with the 6th overall pick. 266 carries, 975 yards, just 3.7 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. You know, all the other Raider running backs combined for just 41 carries. So it was always Jeanty all the time. And I think under Clint Kubiak, they're going to have a complimentary back to split the carries a little bit and lighten the load on Ashton Jeanty. That's where Mike Washington, their 4th-round pick out of Arkansas, comes in. Let's go, Washington. Get yourself ready to go. But I think the run game has a chance to get better because it's a rebuilt offensive line. They've got new schemes. They've got a complimentary back in Washington. They're going to be under the center more instead of these slow developing shotgun runs. Under the center runs will really help Jeanty. And they're going to use a lot different personnel groupings, which we've talked about. A lot of reasons why they can get better. A 2-back system, Charbonneau and Kenneth Walker in Seattle, Ashton Jeanty and Mike Washington in Vegas. Block the plays better, man. I mean, 50% of Jeanty's runs last year were from 11 personnel, almost always in the shotgun. And when you're in 11 personnel with Brock Bowers, he's really not the classic blocking tight end. I think it makes it tough for Jeanty to consistently make yards. The Raiders don't have a true number 1 receiver. We'll get into their receiving core in a minute, but they do have the great Brock Bowers, who had a historic year as a rookie. He missed several games last year with injuries. He's back and healthy. The only significant addition the Raiders made was ex-Minnesota Viking Jalen Naylor. He played for Kubiak in Minnesota. Naylor is interesting. He played 50% in the slot. They had Addison, they had Justin Jefferson, but Naylor did have some production last year, and he does make some splash plays. The Raiders' receiving core only accounted for 1,690 yards last year. That's the third least amount of yardage by a receiving core in pro football. That's not good. So I'm anxious to see, what does Coach Kubiak do with this personnel? I really think they're going to use a lot of 12 personnel. One back, Genty, two tight ends, Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers, and I think you're going to see Trey Tucker and Naylor play a lot at wide receiver. I look to see a lot of 12 personnel from this year's Raiders. Brock Bowers, a historic rookie season. Last year he still led the team with 64 catches, and he missed half the season. The guy can line up inside and out. The issue I have with Bowers is most of the time he runs routes from the slot. He runs them from out wide. Very rarely does he run a route as a conventional tight end. And in Seattle, with A.J. Barner, Elijah Arroyo, hey, most of the routes those guys ran in Seattle, they were conventional tight ends. Will Brock Bowers become the Raiders' version of Jackson Smith and Jigba? That guy, JSN, he runs routes from everywhere. I think the biggest issue with the offense last year was the offensive line. I mean, they gave up 64 sacks. They had some running plays that weren't blocked properly. There were some scheme issues, some personnel issues, and some technical errors that really hurt them. Now, they got a new offensive line coach in Rick Dennison. There's going to be a brand new scheme. We've talked about the outside zone. A more committed running attack. They're going to be blocking running plays more than passing plays. And you're going to see the pocket move, man. Bootlegs, quick game. They're going to change the launching spot of the quarterback, and hopefully they're not coming from behind every week. I think that's a big reason you'll see this offensive line get better. Rick Dennison, I don't want to undermine what he has done as an offensive line coach in this league for over 30 years. 4-time Super Bowl champion, man. 2025 last year, he was the run game coordinator of the world champion Seahawks. He has long ties to the Kubiak family. So this offensive line is in good hands. Another big issue for the Silver and Black is the return of Colton Miller at left tackle. He missed most of the season. He got that high ankle sprain against the Bears, and he missed about 10 games. But he's 30 years old now. Recovery has been very positive. The key to the Raider offensive line is the return of Colton Miller at left tackle. And then, who's the right tackle going to be? Is it going to be DJ Glaze? I mean, last year, DJ Glaze, when you look at Pro Football Focus, gave up 10 sacks. The only guy that gave up more sacks was another Raider, Stone Forsythe, who's no longer there. But DJ Glaze going into year 3, let's freaking go. He's got to step up. He's got to play better. And I know Coach Dennison is going to get it out of him. That guy's got to step up and play much better. They also drafted Trey Zune. Don't forget that name. It sounds like Zune. Came out of Texas A&M. Will he battle DJ Glaze? We'll see. And is Charles Grant, a draft pick from a year ago, is he ready to compete? Keep an eye on that right tackle position during training camp. The center is Tyler Lindenbaum. Guy's making a lot of money, man. He's a hell of a center, and we need somebody in the pivot with this young quarterback, Mendoza. But Linderbaum's been to the Pro Bowl. He's been rated as arguably, he and Creed Humphrey are neck and neck with who the best center in football is. What a pickup. The guard position to me is a crapshoot. I don't know who the guards are. Is it going to be Jackson Powers Johnson? Pretty high draft pick out of Oregon a couple years ago. Is he going to play right guard? Where is Spencer Burford, the free agent acquisition, going to play? Left guard? Where is Trey Zune going to compete? Is he going to compete in here to start at guard? We don't know, but there's a lot of coming and going at the guard position. Caleb Rogers is another Raider to watch. But the guards, I'm an owl. Who's it going to be, man? They got to get that solved. The tight end position, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, you might not find a better 1-2 combination than that. But I expect Michael Mayer to be the classic tight end, and I see Brock Bowers playing any of the 3 wide receiver positions. He's a badass. And wide receiver, Let's all zoom in on Jalen Naylor. I mean, this guy has never caught more than 29 passes in a season in his first 4 years in Minnesota. But he led the Vikings with 15.0 yards per catch. 50% of the time he's been in the slot, he's been overshadowed by Addison and Jefferson. It's time for Naylor to get a bigger role. I can't wait to see what he does. They also have that Dante Thornton guy, number 10, big, fast guy from Tennessee. I think he was underwhelming, disappointing as a rookie. A lot of rookies struggle, but it's a new system. He's got to pick it up in year 2. They need him to play as big and fast as he looks. And on the other side is Jack Besh, former TCU player. He was underwhelming as a rookie, 20 catches, just 224 yards, a second-round pick. They need Thornton and Besh to come alive. They need Jalen Naylor to pick up his play and become a great pro football player. But the guy I love, ask me, Jake.
Who is it?
It's Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker is a Gruden grinder. He brings speed. He brings conditioning, yards after the catch. In his 4th season last year, 57 catches, 696 yards. He had 5 TDs. This guy's a playmaker, man. He's got great conditioning. They hand him the ball on jet sweeps. He's a load to tackle. I love Trey Tucker. But again, you might see Brock Bowers playing in the slot. You might see Bowers playing everywhere. But this young receiving core has work to do and things to prove. And the feature back is going to be Ashton Genty. We all know he struggled making big runs last year. Hell, the Raiders were last in football last year in plus 10 runs. The Seahawks had 55 of those. They were 7th in the league. But just 3.7 yards per carry. He's got to continue to improve in the passing game as well. Not just as a receiver. He caught 55 passes, but as a blitz pickup guy. And we have already talked about Mike Washington, the former Arkansas Razorback. He's wearing number 30. He's got to come through as the complimentary back. They also have Dylan Laub, number 23 out of New Hampshire. He's a good kick returner. So there's your Raider offense. They got to decide who the quarterback is going to be to start the season. What is Fernando's role? What are we going to do with Aiden O'Connell? And what is this offensive line going to become, particularly at guard? And who are the receivers after Trey Tucker? Let's find out. Okay, this Raider defense has new leadership as well. It'll be Rob Leonard, former defensive line coach of the Raiders. He was retained and promoted, rightfully so. He's a hell of a coach. Who is Rob Leonard? Ask me, Jake.
Who is he?
Well, he's been with the Raiders for a few seasons as a D-line coach. He was with the Baltimore Ravens in 2022. He was an assistant D-line coach, linebacker coach of the Dolphins for 3 years. Then he was with the New York Giants from 2013 to 18. So this is his 4th team. He's been around some great defensive minds, and it's his turn, man, to take the torch and bring this defense back. Rob Leonard, defensive line coach, has been promoted. They'll run a 3-4 defense, but they'll be multiple. They'll adapt. They'll have many variations of their front during a game and during this season. They've got a lot of new starters in their front, man, and we're going to get into this load as well. They brought in an edge rusher, Kwity Paye from the Colts. They brought in 2 new inside linebackers, Nakobe Dean from Philly, Quay Walker from Green Bay. Brought in a new nickel corner, Teron Johnson, a lot of new players. But since 2003, man, 2003, only one time has the Raiders had a defense ranked higher than 18th. That's not very good. So Coach Leonard is going to have his hands full, but if anybody can do it, he can do it. You know, this defensive line has been hit with some setbacks. I mean, Christian Wilkins, big-time defensive lineman they signed from the Dolphins. Some mysterious things are happening. He's out of the building. Malcolm Kuntz, young pass rusher, has 8 sacks 2023. He has a terrible knee injury. He's on his way back. And Max Crosby, he disappeared the last 2 games last year. They shut him down. Then they traded him for 2 first-round picks. Then they got him back for something. I don't know what's going on out there with the Raider D-line. They drafted Tyree Wilson with the 6th overall pick, just sent him to New Orleans. They didn't get a lot back in return. So there's been a lot of turnover in the front. That continues in 2026. Let's talk about this revamped linebacker core right here. Nakobe Dean comes in from Philly, 3 years, $36 million. Quay Walker gets 3 years for $40 million. What's cool about these two guys is they're young. They both are good against the run. They're very good blitzers, and they played together on the same team at Georgia. They won the national championship together in 2021. Big reason why the Bulldogs have those rings are these two linebackers. Both guys, I think, are leaders. Both guys can wear the green dot. They're very good communicators. Should be excellent additions to this ball club. The secondary is the biggest concern to me when I watch the Raiders. I mean, they had a big offseason in terms of acquisitions. They drafted 4 young guys, and they signed Teron Johnson, the ex-Buffalo Bill. Hell, they even re-signed Eric Stokes to corner for a $30 million 3-year extension. So it's going to be interesting. We all know Stokes is the Raiders' most proven corner and best player. That's why they paid him. He gave up an 85 QBR last year, which led to silver and black. But who's the other corner going to be, man? Quarterbacks, they ran Blue Kelly out of Vegas, and Darian Porter, the other starting corner who does return, he got beat pretty bad last year. Hence, we drafted a lot of DBs. Remember, this Raider defense was very inconsistent in 2025. They gave up almost 25.5 points a game. They were 30th in the NFL on third down percentage. 46.3%. That ain't gonna fly against Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, and Pat Mahomes. We got to do better than that. They were okay against the run. They gave up 3.9 yards a carry, but it's the lack of pass rush that really doomed the Las Vegas Raiders. Max Crosby can't do it all himself. You set your whole plan to stop Crosby. Somebody else has to win in these one-on-one situations. The Raiders had a 28% pressure rate versus the pass. That's the 3rd worst in the league. Al Davis would tell you, the quarterback has to go down, and he's got to go down hard. I used to hear that a lot. Biggest thing on their defense to me is, are these guys going to return from their injuries and be what they can be? I mean, Malcolm Kuntz, I talked about him. Can he return to that 2023 form? Max Crosby, is he healthy? Is he ready to hum around the edge and be the force that we know he is? Nakobe Dean, he got hurt in that playoff game against the Rams 2 years ago. He had a tough offseason. He missed part of the season last year in Philly. And trade in Stooks, their 2nd-round pick. He had a terrible injury in 2024, and he missed the start of the 2025 season. And then there's Jermod McCoy, their 4th-round pick out of Tennessee. He didn't play his senior year last year at Tennessee. So all these young guys, are they healthy? Will they stay healthy? Can they be great like we think they can? But when you look at the front 4, to me it all starts here. That's Rob Leonard's background. That's where his strength is. The edge rushers is Max Crosby, and I think it's going to be Kwity Paye, the opening day starters. Crosby's play time is always high. His effort's high. His leadership is great. 69.5 career sacks. That's 3rd most in Raider history already. He ain't no one-trick pony either. He's a very good edge setter, penetrator, good run defender. And when it comes to pressures, man, this guy has 360 pressures and the 69.5 sacks. No one's close to Crosby when it comes to causing pressures. He's got 29 more than everybody else since he's been in the league. And then over here, Kwity Paye. Who the hell is Kwity Paye? Former 1st-round pick out of Michigan. Had some nice years in the Colts. 30.5 sacks in 74 games. Last year, his production was down. He had one of the worst pressure rates in football. They need Kwity Paye to take advantage of some great looks opposite Max Crosby. And then the return of Malcolm Kuntz, former 3rd-round pick out of Buffalo. They need him to showcase his stuff again. He had 8 sacks in 2023. He had 4.5 sacks last year, and I felt Malcolm Kuntz towards the end of the season. That gives the Raiders 3 pretty damn good rushers. And then their draft choice, Kieron Crawford out of Auburn. He started his career at Arkansas State. He got better at Auburn. In 2024, he had no sacks. He only had 23 pressures. But last year at Auburn, he had 5 sacks and 36 pressures. So the arrow's going up on Crawford. Those are 4 pretty good edge rushers. You need depth. It's a long season. Inside, it's a 3-4 defense. You'll see Adam Butler, 69. The addition of Benito Jones, number 94. These guys can play over the center in a 3-4 defense. They can play a shade in their sub packages. But it's this guy I love right here, Jonah Lalu. I love that name, Lalu. He was a 7th-round pick last year. The guy had 51 tackles. Hell, he showcased some really good pass rush. He had 4 sacks. And when they lose Christian Wilkins, I'm like, what are they going to do? So they go to Jonah Lalu, and Lalu did some good things. So Butler and Lalu, and then the trade with Philadelphia to get Thomas Booker, number 99. They got some big guys with some athletic ability, and they're counting on second-year players, Tonka Hemingway, and certainly J.J. Pegues out of Mississippi, 2 second-day players they picked in last year's draft. They've got some nice depth inside. Linebacker Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, we know the contracts they signed. Hell, Quay Walker, 1st-round pick by Green Bay. There's only been 2 linebackers have over 100 tackles 4 straight seasons for the Packers, and Quay Walker's one of them. Hell of a player, just 26 years old. Nakobe Dean, he's only 25, son of a bitch. He's got 7.5 career sacks, 4 last year. This cat can rush. He's made 226 tackles. He's been on a world champion team. He's been on a national championship team. These guys bring juice, I think, to this defense. Keep an eye on Cody Lindenberg and Tommy Eichenberg, 2 other young linebackers who you're going to see a lot in the preseason. But the biggest concern is what, Jake?
What?
The secondary. We all know Stokes got the big contract. He's going to be wearing number 5, I'm told. Keep an eye on Stokes. He had a good season last year on the edge. On the other side, Darian Porter returns. He's a long, good-looking corner. He'll be challenged by Richardson, number 25, and I can't wait to see what are they going to do with Jermod McCoy, who's wearing number 28, the first pick of the 4th round, who they traded up to get. Everybody's talking about McCoy. He just hasn't played a lot of football. 5 games as a starter as a true freshman at Oregon State. Transfers to Tennessee, plays 13 games, misses all of 2025. But in 18 starts, man, this guy's got 16 PBUs, 6 interceptions. He's got a lot of ball production, and he has 4.38 speed. Will he tackle? I see him shoulder tackling all the time. Is he going to lock, lift, and drive? He's got to wrap up better, I think. But a very good prospect, and they got competition at corner opposite Stokes. The nickel corner will be Teron Johnson out of the Buffalo Bills. He had a nice run there. The Bills switched gears. They brought in Jim Leonard to be their new D coordinator. Teron Johnson is out. But Johnson, even though he's had a lot of success in Buffalo, I think he's there to mentor their 2nd-round pick, Tredan Stukes, out of Arizona, who is really an interesting prospect. Can you imagine Fernando Mendoza getting Kirk Cousins to mentor him? No, you can't. How about having Tredan Stukes to be mentored by Teron Johnson? Pretty smart move, I think, by the Raiders. Stukes played over 500 snaps at corner, 500 at nickel, 500 at safety. He's best when he's in the slot, man. This guy's a former walk-on. He starts 38 games for Arizona. He had a can of whoop-ass every week. I love him. Stukes and Johnson will battle at the nickel position, I think. And at safety, Isaiah Polamau returns. He was up and down. He had 2 interceptions, 90 tackles. When he's up, he's up. But he had a couple bad entries. He missed some tackles. He's going to be challenged by Tristan McCollum or Dalton Johnson, number 43, who they drafted out of Arizona. There's going to be competition for Isaiah Polamau. The other safety is Jeremy Chin. He's a badass. He played well for the Carolina Panthers. He played very well for the Washington Commanders. And in his first year with Vegas, he had 114 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. So the Raiders, new linebackers, very exciting. I love the depth at the edge rush position. They've got some young competition inside. And at corner, let's see what these young draft choices can do to get that position better. Defensive coordinator Rob Leonard. First year as a coordinator. I can't wait to see what he does. Well, I think the Raiders have a chance to gain some continuity at head coach and quarterback for years to come. I think that's exciting. They've got a young staff and a young team, a lot of competition. But I still think in the West, Denver is the team to beat. They've got everybody coming back basically. I love some of the moves the Chargers have made in the offseason. I just hate to tell Jake. And I still think the Chiefs are going to be in the playoffs. I see 3 teams in the West making the playoffs. It has been done before. It can happen again. And I think the Raiders, with this tough schedule, it's going to be a challenge for them to make the playoffs, but they will showcase a little bit of improvement. You'll see. Well, there you have the AFC West. This is a grind, man. But don't you love it? We're about to get into the NFC East, and we're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys?